cares for his own. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. I cannot be. No. My burdens are low. Can help me, only Jesus alone. I must tell Jesus all of my troubles. He is a kind and compassionate friend. If I ask him, he will deliver. Make all my troubles quickly and hand. My burdens are low. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. Jesus can help me. Only Jesus alone. What must I do when worldliness calls me? What must I do when tempted to sin? I must tell Jesus, and he will help me over the world, victory to win. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. I cannot be. My burdens are low. I must tell Jesus. I must tell Jesus. Jesus can help me. Jesus can help me. Only Jesus can help me. Only Jesus alone.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat.
To all the mothers out there, the ones that have passed, and the ones who are still here with us, God bless. I remember Mama and the love that she gave. Building her the bedside, I could still hear Mama say, people are better than you, George, don't you let them down. I remember Mama in the happy mood. We went to school with holes in our shoes. We didn't have much, but the loss saw us through.
afternoon to all my listeners and viewers. Welcome to Rebel Radio. Today is Monday, bright and sunny in Jamaica. Right. We are going to start this evening by going over to Bahamas. As you know, we at Rebel Radio, we try our best to keep in touch with our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. Remember, we are one people. And as you are aware, they are planning their elections over there. The country is in election mode now. I have with me journalist Christian Jones. Hello, Christian, how are you?
I'm very well. Good afternoon, Mr. Richards, and good afternoon to your audience listening to us, wherever they may be in Jamaica, throughout the world.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Well, I know the country's election is in election mode now.
Yes. The election is... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I was looking at a report that shows me that a significant number of the candidates are millionaires. What does that mean?
Well, that's a very interesting point that you make there, Mr. Richards. And of course, we are getting down to the wire. We are almost building up to this crescendo now. So what is expected to be the most important election, I think, election. I said it this on my show. Every election we talk about being the most important, but when we really look at what is at stake here in this general election, there are several persons who have made the argument that the gravity of this election is such that it would most important that we've seen in a very long time. In terms of the report that you mentioned, and it's a very interesting point that you raised. We have seen where parliamentarians and candidates who are aspiring parliamentarians would have submitted their various different declarations in terms of net worth, many of them declaring in excess of millions of dollars, some of them multi-millionaires. And the American public is asked this same question in terms of what it means that so many of them have displayed so much wealth. You have, when you look at the government, you have quite a few members, the government parliamentarians whose net worth has increased. The leader of the opposition in the past 5 years, I believe, his net worth increasing by $2 million or so. And you have some, of course, like former NBA star Rick Fox, who has run on behalf of the Free National Movement, who would have declared in excess of $469 million. There are a lot of persons who have looked at that declaration. They found it to be absolutely impossible. They say that if Mr. Fox has a net worth of $469 million after only earning $30 million over 13 years in the NBA, then really he shouldn't be a candidate. We should find some sort of permanent position for him in the Ministry of Finance. But it has gone to show, and I think it has shown quite collusively, that this whole idea of declarations when it comes to members of parliament here in the Bahamas at least means absolutely nothing. We've seen that quite a few people have, I think, for intentional purposes, inflated their net worth. And I think that we've seen some cases with some of the members of parliament who have downplayed some of the wealth. Another thing is some of these members of parliament who declare, making X amount of millions of dollars. And I've heard the Progressive Liberal Party say that, well, the economy is just so good that persons are doing well. But certainly there must be some sort of investigation, some sort of deep probing as to how so many persons have developed or built much wealth over the past 4 or 5 years. Not that I am specifically suspicious or skeptical about these fortunes that they have built, but I think the processes ought to be in place, the procedures ought to be in place, that we certainly scrutinize public officials, certainly those that are in office that make a fixed salary, and how it is that they are able to in many cases make these tidy fortunes.
Yes, but you made a point there a while ago that about the economy. Is it that these candidates, they are also investors in the economy, and their wealth, does it show that the economy is doing well?
You have a lot of people who have come to Parliament in the last election cycle, many of them who were independently wealthy already. Our former Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Dennis, in the last 2 elections declared in excess of 15 million. I believe his net worth would have gone up somewhere between 3 million and 5 million. He himself, being the former Prime Minister, Dr. Dennis, would have made a contribution in it was was born to $1 billion once any concern the members from his party. I don't believe that it's because of corruption, but asks the question, who is probing, who is looking at this? You have Chester Cooper, for example, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Tourism, once again an individual who came to Parliament independently wealthy. He has businesses outside of his responsibilities as a minister of the government. And these businesses that he has outside of Parliament seem to have, I guess, been generating, and somehow he has generated more wealth for himself while being a parliamentarian. And like I mentioned, the answer that is given as to what has led to so many members, both on the Progressive Liberal Party side and the Free National Movement, seemingly moving up in terms of tax bracket and making more money, that it is a sign that the economy is strong, that businesses are doing well, that since the Davis administration has been in power, there has been, I think, a surge in foreign direct investment. And that is, as I say, one of the plausible answers as to what we see today.
Oh, I see. Now, let me ask you a question then. This wealth that we have seen so far from these contenders for political power, has it been trickling down to the working class in Bahamas?
Oh, certainly, from what I see, and there have been a lot of persons in this administration who have been recipients of contracts, recipients of other business ventures, public-private partnerships, in which the government has, it seems to have worked hand in hand with several different persons in our country, various different businesses, to build on this progress mandate in the past 4.5 years. I just spoke to a minister of the government, speaking to him about some of the young persons who have been hired over the past 4.5 years. He told me that he was directed by the Prime Minister specifically to give jobs to anybody who wants to work. And I believe that we've seen that has caused a bit of a fracture politically. The Free National Movement, the opposition, have raised questions over the no-bid contracts that the Davis administration has signed with different persons throughout their tenure. They've asked for more accountability and transparency as these contracts that they allege have been given out in many cases to political partisan supporters of the Progressive Liberal Party. But nobody argues, or I think there's no question about it, that a lot of the persons, take for example, and I'll give you an example that has been somewhat of an issue in the last few weeks or the last couple of weeks of the election, and that is the Public Beaches and Parks Authority, which is mandated for cleaning up the environment, the different sidewalks and bridges, and the list goes on and on, the beaches, public parks, and you've seen that throughout the administration, the Progressive Liberal Party has spent on year in excess of $30 million. The Minute administration, the former administration, before leaving office, similarly spent quite a bit of money leading up to the election. Mr. Davis, the Prime Minister at the time, would have accused the Minute government of using that public authority as a slush fund. But in every year since the Progressive Liberal Party has been in power, they've kept the budget at about $30 million. The argument that they make is that persons have been put to work, that persons have been paid for projects, cleaning up and beautifying different communities, and this has become somewhat of a sore point for members of the Free National Movement and some independents who say that, well, the Progressive Liberal Party criticized this practice, this behavior, but they have similarly done something similar to what the Free National Movement has done. I don't think that issue has picked up as much traction. Of course, some of the more salient points, some of the points, some of the issues that persons feel on a daily basis. When you talk about the economy being number one issue, and then you talk about immigration, a lot has been done, a lot has been said by the opposition to fearmonger, I believe, to over-exaggerate the issue here we have with immigration. We have a large population of Haitian migrants in the Bahamas. That has been exacerbated, of course, by what we've seen in Haiti over the past few years as conditions have deteriorated and gangs have all but seized Port-au-Prince. But when we consider the argument that the Free National Movement has made, some of the accusations that they have made, that there are Haitians that will be voting in this Bahamian election, they're not just unfounded allegations, but they cannot be supported by any sort of evidence.
Okay.
So it's a situation, Mr. Richards, where Bahamians are almost being turned against each other, on this issue of immigration. It's similar to what we see in the United States of America with this immigration problem. And a lot of what we see in these election exercises, I think, a lot of times mirrors some of the political nonsense that we see in the United States of America. But I mean, this is the hill that the Free National Movement has decided to, I guess, either live or die on. We will find out tomorrow.
Okay. Yes, just remind my listeners, tomorrow is the 12th. The 12th is the date of the election. Am I right?
Yes, sir, you're right. The polls will be open tomorrow.
Yes.
For about 10 hours. We're expecting, I believe we are expecting a huge voter turnout. We have more people who have registered to vote in this election than any other election before. The Bahamas, a small country of about 450,000 people, but we have over 200,000 people who have registered to vote in this election. In the last election, we saw where voter turnout would have been around 60%. That is uncommon and unusual for the Bahamas. Bahamians like to vote. Bahamians like to exercise the democratic right we've enjoyed in the past several years. Voter turnouts in the high 80s and 90s. Regionally, we've seen, just as in the past election in Jamaica, the voter turnout was in around 40-something%. We've seen in these Caribbean elections some level of voter apathy. But I am expecting that assumption to be rebutted in the Bahamas tomorrow. I think quite a few people, especially younger people, the 18-year-olds, the first-time voters, I'm expecting them to make a big difference tomorrow, Mr. Richards.
Yes, and so far, the campaign, let me hear now, what are the messages that the parties are taking to the campaign? What the opposition is telling the people why they should change the government?
The Progressive Movement, I'll start with the government's position, which is a pretty simple position that they've put forth, which is about progress. Over the past 30 years, we've changed political parties. Every 5 years, there's been no continuity, no stability in terms of policies. We've had parties who have come to power with a position that they ought to stop, review, and cancel the policies of the prior administration. And if you look at the national development of the Bahamas, only one Prime Minister Pinling. I will agree with critics that 25 years is probably a bit too long, but we have not seen the level of development in our country in the past 25 years. By doing this ping pong thing, when you go from one party to the next. And what the Progressive Liberal Party has asked voters to do is look at the progress around you, look at the policies of the government, the benefits that you can see, touch, and feel. Look at the ratings agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, all of them who have given the Bahamas good ratings. We had a period in our country's history of downgrades which would have severely impacted the economy, and the Davis administration, by all accounts, as it relates to the economy, is doing a pretty good job. When you talk about the representation around the world on the international stage, this is a point that the Davis administration has made, as well as the ability to use relationships between, of course, it's CARICOM, brothers and sisters, our partners in CARICOM, as well as the wider world, to push the agenda forward. And it's a lot about progress. It's similar to Gaston Brown's argument about Renaissance in Antigua. It's similar to Andrew Holness's request for a third term in Jamaica. It's about building on what you have already accomplished, or building on what you have already achieved. And when it relates to the Free National Movement, the Free National Movement has quite literally asked the Bahamian people to vote the PLP out, to reset the political landscape before us today. That they've asked, they believe they've made allegations, as I mentioned, allegations and accusations. One of the major newspapers in the Bahamas today, the Tribune, which is the oldest newspaper in the Bahamas, I think the second oldest newspaper in the Bahamas, and they have historically not seeing eye to eye philosophically with the Progressive Liberal Party. But this morning, the publisher of the Tribune, Mr. Robert Depuch Karen, has endorsed the Progressive Liberal Party, and the main reason that he has said it is because he sees the Free National Movement, their antics, the accusations, the allegations, the politics that they have been practicing over the past few years, the divisions within their party, the fractures within their party, that he sees them as being an undisciplined party that is not ready for governing this country. At the same time, the Free National Movement has pointed to what they call an immigration crisis. They have made this issue about sovereignty, that they believe, they've said that we are at the point where if they do not intervene, the country will be dominated or taken by foreigners. In this case, as I mentioned, they have demonized the local Christian population in this country. And their slogan, their mantra is "We work for you." And I believe that in comparison, or pales in comparison, to what the Progressive Liberal Party has presented, which is an opportunity for Bahamians to rebut this presumption, to change a 30-year trend when no government has succeeded in getting a consecutive term.
Okay, I see. So it is going to be a showdown tomorrow, and as you mentioned that the opposition and the government have presented their case to the people. The people are going to the polls tomorrow. But finally, Christian, let me ask you, what are some of the main issues affecting the lives of the Bahamian people?
Okay. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. People will go to the polls tomorrow. Our Prime Minister, our first Prime Minister, Lyndon Pinley, who was defeated soundly in 1992, Mr. Richards, said that the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Okay.
So we look forward to tomorrow to seeing who will be victorious for that. Both parties make the final appeal. Both of them hosting rallies this evening. Progressive Liberal Party, National Movement, mega rallies. But as it relates to the major issues that have dominated this election, and in every election, I am convinced, I believe in this philosophy, that people will always look at the economy as the number one issue. People will always vote from the position of their pockets, so to speak. Whether they are feeling the economy, whether tourism is going in the right direction, whether the government has achieved or has worked towards diversifying the economy of the Bahamas. The cost of living has made the government's case as it relates to their stewardship of the economy. It's made that a very hard task. Prices are increasing everywhere around the world. When you talk about single mothers, you talk about the increase in gas prices, you talk about quite a bit of these things. And I could start talking about some of the things that I've seen the government do to date, but it wouldn't matter really unless people are feeling at the end of the day some relief. But that is one issue. Healthcare is another issue. We have one primary hospital in the capital, which served over 200,000 people, the Princess Margaret Hospital, which was built in the 1950s. For decades, it has been in a state, not the state that we would like it to be. There certainly is need for improvement and upgrade. The Progressive Liberal Party, since coming to term, has promised to build a new hospital in Providence, which they said that they will dedicate to neonatal medicine as well as to women's issues. The National Movement has opposed this idea of building a new hospital. They have demonized it. They've demonized the funding from the Chinese government, and they have not submitted any sort of policy to approve building a new hospital, which would take some pressure off of the healthcare system. They've made immigration an issue. I don't believe, and I think is issues of assimilation in our country, different communities in our country. Certainly, as I mentioned, we have a large migrant population in our country, as we do in quite a few of our other countries. But this has been a very emotive issue for Bahamian people, especially when this replacement theory is put on the table. Immigration is put up there as one of those issues. So between the economy, immigration, healthcare, and a lot of people have also been concerned about a greater level of transparency and accountability in government. But for those that perhaps I think be the major issue. Another issue, which is not as important, would be housing. We have the Free National Movement, which is now vying to be the government again for 4.5 years. They did not successfully build one home. I spoke to the housing minister, the Honorable Keith Bell, about a month ago, who said that he has about 12,000 Bahamians who he wants to be able to put in a home. The Free National Movement has said, now I'll tell you again, Mr. Richards, now I don't know what kind of premium the Jamaican public puts on track record, but the Free National Movement built not one house in 4.5 years, and has told the Bahamian public that in the first 5 years, if they are elected, they will build 5,000 houses. Now, I do not think that people, that the public is the type of public in our country which is not discerning and which will just, accept that, Mr. Pinto. There are persons who have questioned how a Pinto-led government will make that happen. And we have not seen where the opposition has been able to flesh out these policies. And I believe when it comes to these elections, it's about telling a story. And I don't see the national movement today has told a more compelling story than the Progressive Liberal Party. I think about the image that's in my mind right now. I think that the last Progressive Liberal Party rally that was held on Friday night, and they seem to have ditched the regular party paraphernalia. The people are waving in the horns and the flag for the Bahamian flag,
right,
which was the overwhelming symbol, everybody waving Bahamian flags. Yeah. And the imagery of that on Saturday night reaffirmed for me as a journalist, Mr. Richards, that the Progressive Liberal Party, whether they win or lose tomorrow, has run a better campaign than the Free National Movement.
Okay. Well, let us prepare ourselves to talk about the results on Wednesday. We have exhausted our time for today. I want to thank you very much. And we will talk about the results on Wednesday. Have a good day.
Well, thank you, Mr. Richards, and once again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to you and your audience. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Look forward to talking to you on
Okay, sir. Thank you. That was Christian Jones there from Bahamas, keeping us abreast of what is happening in the elections. Elections are going to be held tomorrow. Let us take a break. This is Rebel Radio.
It's the Everybody Sale at New Budget Supplies. Do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, insects and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 Hunterburg Road. Telephone 93-4560. New Budget Supplies. Always the best prices.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hardware.
back to Rebel Radio, and you know we are going to continue a discussion we started last week over in Guyana. Yes, and we spoke then to Dr. Andre Lewis of the We Party, and he brought to our attention a lot of issues affecting the Guyanese people. You know, Guyana is an oil-rich economy, but Dr. Lewis is telling us about some issues which are plaguing the ordinary Guyanese. Good evening, Dr. Lewis. How are you?
I am well, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you for me.
Yes. Well, last week you brought up a number of issues, sir. You represent the We Party. Dr. Lewis represents the We Party in Guyana. And one of the issues that brought up that Parliament is not meeting. The people's business is not being discussed in Parliament because the parliamentarians, the Parliament has not met. Yes, we want to continue our discussion today, Dr. Lewis, as you were telling us about the issues affecting the Guyanese, the ordinary Guyanese people. Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. And there are many issues plaguing the Guyanese people right now. You did start mentioning that Guyana is an oil-rich country, and perhaps the first issue is that the average person doesn't feel like we're in an oil-rich economy, considering all the things that we have to deal with on a day-to-day. And nothing much changed since the oil discoveries, and we make $2 billion a day in oil revenue, and the average person cannot say that they're honestly benefiting. That is the issue. Our infrastructure is still poor. If I turn on my tap right now, the color of the water is almost like normal in some parts of Guyana.
What you say, the color of the water? Well, it's brown?
Or running water. Yeah, it's brown. It's brown. And it really depends on where you live. Some part of the city, it's absolutely clear, wonderful. Of course, we can't drink it. But where I live outside of the country, the water is absolutely brown. And again, I say I'm lucky.
Let me find.
I'm lucky that I have running water.
Don't educate me on this. You can just turn on your tap in Guyana where you are. Turn on your tap and drink water.
No. So what happens is people you have to buy drinking water. Right? There are, and that is the case for most parts of Guyana. There are people in the interior who live around streams, as I was mentioning last week. So their source of water comes from a stream, a river, a lake. And that's a lot of people, because as we mentioned last time, 58% of the population is still in poverty, and about 30% in abject poverty. So it's not all gloomy as everybody will see. Oh, Guyana has oil and the country must be doing well and everybody must be getting on well. Our teachers are still leaving to work in other countries because of the pay. So everything isn't peachy as it's made to seem by the government altogether.
Yes. So the water, let me find out something. Is it a case where the water is impure?
It is.
And what is being done to make that better, to make water potable and clean and free of diseases?
The government has been making investments into new wells and changing the underground pipes and so on, but it has not changed the quality of water at all, which leads a lot of people to think that the money is not actually being spent wholly and solely on the water filtration system altogether. For a couple months back, there was no chlorine in the water altogether. Then again, perhaps there was a shortage or something. Of course, the government decides what information could be filtered or not, so we can't be sure what was the problem back then. The average person does not turn on the tap and get water. They have to actually buy water from water companies who have distilled, and they come around and they sell water, and then you have to buy the drinking water in bottles.
Yes.
In the city, for the most part, and again, most of the city, because they are not necessarily governed locally, their local government isn't part of the ruling PPP, or they're not governed by the ruling PPP, because the people in the city don't necessarily vote for the PPP. Their water condition is just the same as mine. If you go into the more upper class neighborhoods, then you have better water. So the presidents and the ministers and all of that will not complain at all about the quality of water that they have, which you will understand. They'll take care of themselves. But the average person, the water quality is ridiculous.
Oh, that's not good news at all. No.
It's absolutely unacceptable.
Yes. What about other basic amenities? Are they available to the ordinary Guyanese? Health services, education, housing?
Education is available, and education in Guyana is free from nursery to tertiary education. Just this year, before the election, perhaps as an election strategy, they made the University of Guyana free again, tuition free again. It was free before, and I'm a lecturer at the university. The university was free before. And the current government, when they first took over, thought that it wasn't a good model to have free education. So they made it paid education. But then somehow they liberated everybody. We're going to make the university free again. And, for those who don't remember that the university was free before, it was exciting news for them. But we do have free education. Everyone has access to education. Unfortunately, if you live outside of the coastline, where the city is and most services are, there are difficulties getting to school. For some students, it's getting in a canoe for an hour or two and paddling down the river to get to school. Now that the rainy season has started, students who have to walk for 2 hours up a mountain to get to school, like some students in our mining communities, their education is, I want to say in jeopardy, but that's probably a strong word. What happens is if you have to walk to school for 2 hours, starting early in the morning, and then you get there, you're tired.
Yes.
Now that it's rainy season, you have to walk. It's a trek through mud and puddles and all of that, and the students will get to school wet after 2 hours. So it's an uncomfortable situation to be in school. And this has been going on for years, and the people, especially the indigenous people, have complained about access to education in their communities. But it's not anything that has improved over the years, despite the continuous complaint.
So what about transportation? What about transportation?
Most people have to get around by boat. So Guyana is the land of many waters, so you have to use the water a lot. In some communities, again, if you support the government, then they have buses or they have boats, school boats to take the students to and from school. But there are other communities who are in dire need of service. A boat. So if you give them a boat, it was something ceremonial during election time, because at elections we try to do the most to influence the vote. And then after elections are over, then if there's an engine problem or the boat is damaged, then the people wait there for a long time trying to figure out what will happen, and end up having to use their own private transportation, which is sad. Because all we have in place is, the people need this, let's give them this at the election time, and then we leave them, and then we come back next elections, which is unfortunate.
Yes. So the indigenous people who are in the rural areas, they are having difficulties with transportation.
Right, but it's not just the indigenous people, because except for the indigenous communities, and in there are other people, Indo-Guyanese who live in those communities. But again, they're not necessarily people who would vote for the government. And I think because they don't vote for the government, that they don't receive as many but that is that in a region where the government wins, and just take the vote against the line.
What about housing?
But let's talk a bit about healthcare.
Yes.
Yeah. So housing first. The housing situation is such in Ghana where that you buy for house lots so that you can build your own home, but the wait is ridiculously long. And I say that because I've applied for a house lot in 2006, and it is 20. Behind government, left, right, and center. What happens now is there's a lot of options. So if you are able to, or you have money, and you're able to walk into the housing ministry and give some definitely, and although we're entitled to one, you'll see and you'll see people having multiple house lots. If again, that's what the Guyanese people say, that the current government is for their friend, favorite, then you benefit from it. But there are people waiting longer than I have. The government started the project a few years ago where they started to build houses for the people. Well, yeah, last administration started that. They wanted to make struggle for years to build. But they wanted to build the houses and give them to the people, and they pay a small fee later on. So this guy, they wanted to continue it rather, and they wanted to do it for the young professionals, says the doctors. And nobody has been applying to them for years. The people who do receive them turn out not to be professionals, and doctors, the lawyers, the police officers who get them. Again, if your friends, a family, or favorite, then you're most gonna get it. I see 19-year-olds getting not even though the age requirement now is 21. And again, because you know somebody, it's all possible. So there's a lot of people in Guyana who have to rent, or they have to live with their family because of the lack of accessibility to land or to a house. And it's become even more difficult with the advent of oil in Guyana, because renters have raised their prices so high to attract a different sort of clientele, the people from the oil industry, that it is almost impossible for Guyanese to afford the rent, because we would have to spend our entire salary on 1 month's rent, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense now.
Yes. So you are saying that access to land for the landless in Guyana is difficult.
We have a lot of people who squat because they decide, you know what, I'm not going to wait on the government. This is my country and I deserve a plan, so I'm going to take a plan, and for the most part they leave them, and then when they've established themselves well enough and built something on the land, then they're removed by the government. Usually as an investor, something wants the land.
Oh. So you have a lot of squatting in Guyana.
We do, yes. Is the Venezuelans are all squat.
Yes.
And in some regions where they clear land and give
we're having some technical problems.
It's not that we're catering to immigrants. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Probably we're having some issue with the internet because of the rain.
Yes, I'm hearing you better now.
In Guyana and immigrants, but
you are breaking up now.
which is unfortunate.
Yes. What about health service? How's the health service?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. How is the health service? And Dr. Lewis?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm losing you. I'm losing you now, Dr. Lewis.
I am here, sir. Sorry about that.
Yeah. You're having some technical issues.
Got you with the internet.
Yes, problems with the internet there. We're having some issues. Are you hearing me, Dr. Lewis?
Yeah.
Well, I was asking what is the situation with the health services?
All right. So health services in Guyana, of course we have free healthcare. But we have health most regions and most the issue with the service there is that we are as doctors in most communities we have a health center but no health worker, which is not good for, or we have a and education.
Yes. I tell you what,
especially for people living in the interior.
Yes. Dr. Lewis. I tell you what, Dr. Lewis, are you hearing me? Yes, we're having some technical issues. I'm not hearing Dr. Lewis. He's breaking up. It looks as if we have to end this interview and continue it at another time because we are having some serious issues there. We are not hearing Dr. Lewis at all. Yes. And he was talking to us, Dr. Andre Lewis from the We Party there, telling us about some issues affecting the lives of ordinary Guyanese there. But as I said, we were having some technical issues and we have to discontinue. Let me see if I get back Dr. Lewis so we can wrap it up and take it up another time. Dr. Lewis.
Go ahead.
Yes.
My connection was very bad just now.
Yes. You have a few minutes. Let us wrap up and continue at another time. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
Try to do this with the data. Hope it works a little better. So speaking of the healthcare, what is happening is that in most communities we have a health center or a health post. Then areas in the
Yes, it is.
we're shut on.
Yeah. But I tell you what, Dr. Lewis.
Yeah, we'll chat some other time.
Yes,
the connection is not working for me today.
Yeah, let us continue at another time. We have to break it up here, and we will, as I said, let us continue at another day when we have a better reception there. Dr. Andre Lewis from the We Party in Guyana, keeping us abreast of what is happening there in Guyana. And well, you heard him, yes, giving you an idea of some of the issues facing the people in Guyana. Well, you know, we know that things don't. We're not expecting everything to work immediately, but it is clear that there needs to be some improvement in the system over there so that people can, you know, live a better life. And we are watching to see how fast the Guyanese are going to use some of the resources from the oil to make life better for the people. All right, we are going to take a break. Coming up next is a Caribbean Business Review, and they are going to be telling us about the oil crisis facing the Caribbean and what must be done. This is Rebel Radio. Let us take a break.
It's the Everybody Sale at New Budget Supplies. Do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form-ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, thin sets and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 Hagley Road. Telephone 923-4560. New Budget Supplies. Always the best prices.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is holding up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hard Hills.
Welcome to Caribbean Business Review, where insight meets impact. We bring you economic and financial updates, sharp statistical breakdowns, and data-driven insights on the forces shaping the region. Smart analysis, bold ideas, real Caribbean intelligence. This is CBR.
Welcome to episode 17 of season 3 of the Caribbean Business Review. I'm Joseph Cox. Well, thank you so much for your continued support across MKR Radio and our digital platforms. Please be advised that a new edition of the Caribbean Financial Dispatch is now available, and readers can follow the dispatch at caribbeanfinancialdispatch.substack.com. In this week's program, our special guest is Dr. Khadija Usher, Director of Strategy, Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Belize Electricity Limited. Our conversation features a deep dive into how Belize's energy storage challenges one of the biggest assumptions in modern energy policy, that independence automatically equals security. The conversation also explores how, in an era of geopolitical instability, volatile fuel markets, and climate risk, Belize is pursuing a model built on diversification, regional interconnection, and strategic resilience. And in today's CBR briefing, The Emerging Global Food Security Squeeze, we examine how energy disruption and food system vulnerability are combining to create a growing global food security squeeze with profound implications for the Caribbean. But before we proceed, there's a development that requires careful attention. The timing of tax and fee increases is coming under growing scrutiny across the Caribbean as households and businesses contend with heightened geopolitical tensions, rising energy prices, and broader cost of living pressures. Oil shocks already function as an external tax on import-dependent economies, feeding through into transportation, electricity, food prices, and operating costs. Now, against that backdrop, the recent decision by Republic Bank to pause its planned fee increases following public concern over affordability and confusion highlights the reputational and economic sensitivity surrounding additional financial burdens at a time when consumers already feel squeezed. The issue extends beyond the banking sector. In Jamaica, the recent fiscal budget exercise also introduced several new tax imposts as the government seeks to strengthen revenues and maintain fiscal stability. Now, while both governments and financial institutions face legitimate financial pressures of their own, the broader challenge is one of timing and sequencing. Together, these developments raise a broader regional question: whether governments and institutions risk compounding imported inflation pressures by introducing additional domestic cost burdens, while households and businesses are already adjusting to elevated energy prices and weaker growth conditions. In periods of elevated global uncertainty and imported inflation, this risks reinforcing economic strain, weakening consumer confidence, and intensifying public frustration across already pressured economies. Now, with that in mind, let's turn to the key developments shaping the global and regional economy this hour in Market Watch and Global Pulse. Coming up in the Market Watch, Bermuda outlook upgraded on CIT gains, Bahamas fiscal deficit narrows, and Grenada's fiscal rules under pressure. Then in Global Pulse, OPEC output falls to 36-year low, U.S. trade deficit widens on AI-driven imports, and Canada labor market weakens. All that and more this hour on Market Watch and Global Pulse. Now, coming up next is a CBR briefing. This is a CBR briefing. For decades, the global economy operated under the assumption that food production, energy flows, fertilizer supplies, and maritime trade would remain relatively stable and uninterrupted. Today, that assumption is beginning to break down under the combined pressures of climate change, geopolitical conflict, and energy market disruption. The world's food production is projected to need to increase by roughly 70% by 2050 to feed a growing global population. Yet at precisely the moment more food is needed, the global agricultural system is becoming increasingly unstable. Extreme heat, droughts, flooding, shifting rainfall patterns, and climatic cycles such as El Niño are reducing agricultural reliability across major producing regions. Livestock production is already under growing stress with prolonged heat reducing feed intake, fertility, and meat and milk production. Indeed, during prolonged hot periods, cattle output can decline by as much as 10 to 25%. But the deeper issue extends beyond climate alone. Roughly half of the global food production today depends on synthetic fertilizers derived largely from natural gas. Synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, the foundation of modern industrial farming, depends heavily on natural gas both as an energy source and a chemical feedstock. Without these fertilizers, global agricultural output would decline sharply. This is why the conflict involving Iran and disruptions surrounding the Strait of Hormuz carries implications far beyond oil markets. Large volumes of ammonia, urea, sulfur, LNG, and other agricultural inputs move through the region. As maritime insurers and shipping markets reprice Gulf risk, agricultural supply chains face not merely higher costs, but the growing risk of physical disruption itself. This matters because nitrogen fertilizer behaves differently from many other agricultural inputs. Farmers may temporarily reduce applications of phosphorus or potash during periods of high prices, but nitrogen is effectively a non-negotiable operating expense. Without sufficient nitrogen application, crop yields can decline sharply within a single planting cycle. The result is a dangerous global transmission chain. Climate stress lowers agricultural reliability, energy disruptions raise fertilizer costs, shipping and insurance constraints restrict supply chains. Farmers then face rising input costs precisely as planting decisions must be made. And there are already signs of strain emerging globally. In a recent U.S. survey involving more than 5,700 farmers, approximately 70% indicated that they could not comfortably afford fertilizer costs this planting season. Nitrogen prices are reportedly up roughly 30%, while urea prices have risen nearly 47%. Now, these are not merely agricultural statistics. They are potential forward indicators of future food inflation. The critical issue being timing. Energy shocks affect markets immediately, but food systems operate with biological lags, meaning the full inflationary impact may not appear until future harvest cycles 6 to 12 months later. For the Caribbean, this creates an especially dangerous exposure. Most regional economies remain heavily dependent on imported food, imported fertilizer, fuels, and, of course, shipping services. At the same time, the region faces its own climate vulnerabilities, including drought, hurricane exposure, and water stress. The Caribbean, therefore, sits at the intersection of climate vulnerability and imported food dependence precisely as the global food system becomes more unstable. This transforms food security from a traditional agricultural issue into a strategic economic issue tied directly to inflation, foreign exchange pressures, social stability, and national resilience. The emerging risk is not simply a temporary food price spike. It's the possibility of a prolonged structural food security squeeze where climate volatility, geopolitical conflict, fertilizer disruption, and energy shocks increasingly reinforce each other within the global agricultural system. And that's your CBI briefing. This is a market brief. In the Cayman Islands, March 2026, stay-over arrivals reached a record of 64,213 visitors, with cruise arrivals Q1 passenger traffic exceeding 463,000. In the Bahamas, tourism arrivals rose 15.7% in March. The country also recorded a fiscal deficit of $342 million, but public debt continued trending upwards to $12.4 billion. Meanwhile, the government announced plans to acquire Grand Bahama Power Company to help reduce electricity costs. In Bermuda, S&P upgraded the country's outlook to positive from stable, supported by expected corporate income tax revenues, while the current account surplus expanded sharply on stronger business services income and investment earnings. Belize inflation edged higher on rising fuel prices, while imports surged on higher fuel and machinery purchases. Elsewhere, Grenada reported that fiscal rules remained under pressure following Hurricane Beryl related spending, while more than 15 Caribbean countries are partnering with the IDB and CDB on a regional housing resilience initiative targeting hurricane and climate-related vulnerabilities. And in Jamaica, Petrojam says it continues absorbing part of rising fuel costs on the government's pricing cap mechanism, with subsidy support potentially reaching $11.8 billion by June. Well, that's your market brief on the Caribbean Business Review. For more, look for us on YouTube and Spotify.
In a world of constant change, insight is your greatest asset. At Joseph Cox & Associates, we empower innovation across the Caribbean. Whatever your challenge, we can help. We're proudly customer-centric, offering bespoke solutions tailored to every partner. From innovation and digital transformation to leadership and policy, our services are designed to deliver lasting impact. We partner with leaders across sectors, from finance and government to energy, tech, and infrastructure, helping them navigate complexity with confidence. Our work is grounded in collaboration. We connect regional leaders through powerful networks, driving change through joint research. Discover more at josephcox.org. Joseph Cox & Associates. Insight, experience, impact.
Still ahead on Caribbean Business Review, our conversation with Dr. Khadija Usher, Director of Strategy, Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Belize Electricity Limited, where we discuss beyond energy independence, Belize resilience, and the new energy reality.
A major loss for us is transmission. Because if you've been to Belize, you will hit that highway and you start driving for about 5 miles and you'll see one house. And then you'll drive maybe another 5 miles and meet another house. So we have to be sending all of that power across this country, across every mountain, around every mountain, through every creek, everywhere. And a bulk of that power is being generated in the northern region of the country. And a significant amount is being imported from Mexico, which is to the north. So we see a lot more efficiency challenges from the transmission.
Welcome back to Caribbean Business Review. I'm Joseph Cox. We're now going into our strategy deep dive. And today our special guest, our first from Belize, is Dr. Khadija Usher. And Khadija is the Director of Strategy, Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Belize Electricity Limited. As I welcome you to the program, the first thing that really jumps out at me is that Belize remains somewhat of a paradox in the energy space.
Right.
In that you produce a substantial amount of your energy is actually produced from renewable energy sources. But at the same time, you import a lot of your energy as well. And there are some issues perhaps with interconnection with other countries, etc., etc. And I am curious, how does Belize function within this current geopolitical upset that is turning the global economy on its head in terms of reliability of supply, prices, just extreme market volatility? How does this manifest itself in the Belizean space?
So, Joseph, thanks so much for having me on the show. You know, I'm a long-time viewer. Yeah, so Belize is an interesting story, and it's unique in a sense, regionally, to the extent that that's usually the first question we receive, which is, you guys import a lot of your power from Mexico,
Right.
but you have quite a bit of renewable resource as well. We see our energy strategy built on diversity. That is it. And it's a strategy that has never really been based on independence. It's been based on security. And it's not too strange, honestly, if you look across the Latin American region. Latin America has had a legacy of bilateral interconnection. That's actually the way how a lot of the smaller Latin American countries got the opportunity to develop and to expand their electrification during a time when a lot of other jurisdictions would have mainly been focused on supplying that power all by themselves. So if you look across the Latin American landscape, and especially look at the case study of the CFAT line, for instance, or SICA, you would see that there has been a legacy for the mainland countries in Latin America to invest in interconnectivity to drive their local electrification strategy. So to us, it's not very strange, but when consultants arrive, when we're looking at the context of Belize, especially with reference to the Caribbean, which is mainly island nations, it's always flagged as a security concern. At this time, our mix is made up, as you said, of local hydroelectric renewable energy, as well as biomass energy that's co-generated from the sugarcane industry. Very, very minor amounts of solar. That's backed up by in-country thermal generation. And then there's the interconnection with Mexico. And the reason for the significant proportion of what Mexico accounts for our current energy supply for electrification is mainly because of cost. It comes down to cost. Mexico is a big network. So compared to our ability to generate that amount of power for ourselves versus buying it retail from the Mexican market is still pretty competitive. It's still pretty competitive. And despite you brought in aspects of the geopolitical challenges that are being faced, and the Mexican network is primarily natural gas based, so we have seen that volatility and that price risk very significant in their market now. Yes. So I think that what this geopolitical situation has triggered is a refocus on our methodology for what we're considering security. And it's also a little bit of a culture change that we're going through locally. Before, if there's an issue with the interconnection, perhaps at that time Mexico has constraints and we need to, or there's a fault which causes a minor disruption in supply. A 20-minute outage 10 years ago was not as significant as a 20-minute outage now. Our economies are growing. The value of that load loss is much more significant. And we're going through that transition as a people to rethink our concept of security. It could be a case, it was a case before, where there were blackouts, there was load shedding, and nobody blinked an eye. Now, if there is a slight dip for a millisecond, everybody looks up and starts panicking and starts freaking out. So there is also a cultural transition that we're going through when we think about security, which has put a new sort of lens on our current mix. And I think that's why going forward, our basis is still diversity and having access to interconnectivity with our Central American neighbors, even potentially the other Central American nations in the future as we look at the feasibility of those connections. But recognizing that in country we do need that level of energy security. And for us, that security is still tied to having a diverse tech-based technological base as to what we need done for our energy.
All right, fair enough. But from where you sit then, based on what you just said, from where you sit, what is the highest priority in Belize as you go forward now? Is it in terms of the option really? Is it bolstering more renewables as it were? Is it a matter of storage? Is it a matter of grid? Or is it a matter of, as I said, the integration? Where would your priorities lie based on what you said?
Is it
Just so you know.
Is it okay for me to say all of the above? That would defeat the purpose of prioritizing, I know. But in a sense, all of the above. We undertook a very, very vigorous least cost expansion plan exercise in 2022. And we've been doing exercises ever since to reiterate the process of optimally designing the system and optimally selecting the configuration of supply that would be best suited for the context of Belizeans, for the people. Looking at the standpoint of affordability, of the social context, of environment, and of course, security and sustainability. And with that plan, we got some very concrete outputs that we have been pursuing. So the first one you said was basically the fundamental building blocks of the key pathway, which is building renewable energy in country, building storage capacity in country, having recognized that these are the least cost energy supply options that are available to a growing economy. And an economy that is still relatively small. Just the nature of how we can stage in these technologies give them a sort of advantage over larger investments, larger thermal-based, gas-based supply that we might not necessarily have those quantities of demand for it to make economic sense as yet. So those types of characteristics was really what pushed the pathway to emphasize renewable and storage expansion. But paired with that was a relook at basically making the grid, making the system much more robust to be able to accept the integration of such a high penetration of renewable energy within such a short period of time. So the optimal layout really looked at us integrating about 80 megawatts of solar PV paired with 40 to 60 megawatts of battery energy storage between now and 2030, which is a relatively short period of time. And with those supply, that optimal configuration, it looked at all the measures we would need to take from a utility standpoint to ensure that the grid and the system operation is operationally ready to accept this configuration.
No, I hear you on that, but the question is simply this, because in all of that requires significant capital outlay, no matter how you cut it. And I mean, every country faces the same kind of challenges in terms of relatively low fiscal space. So I'm wondering, in that sort of dynamic, what exactly is the priority? I mean, yeah, sure. Conceptually, you would love to have all of them, but you're constrained by money, so what gets the priority?
We have, and I refuse to let me pick number one. And that's why the strategic partnership is so important, because you've pointed it out correctly. We cannot do it all. Our utility is no longer fully vertically integrated. We prioritize transmission, distribution. We're the network and retail services. We have recognized that to get to where we want to be, to really envision this plan that we have, which at this time is still really a document, it's going to rely on our ability to strategically partner with investors on especially the wholesale utility scale side of things, but also with our customers on the distributed, disaggregated supply side of things. So we bring into that picture our complementary demand market strategy, which is looking at, in the interim of getting these large-scale projects in time, these renewables, these storage projects in time, which will require foreign investment, those who have the capital to front these projects, to accept the allocation of risks that are tied to these projects while we get these in and get this negotiated in. We're also looking from the market dynamic aspect. How much can we pull from our demand market? Distributed generation has been hands down our savior. That might be the strangest thing you hear from a utility person. The narrative has completely shifted here locally. But that's a fact. If you probably Google right now, Belize electricity 2024, you are going to get hit with a bunch of news clippings of rolling blackouts, of load shedding, planned load shedding across the months of about May and June. Why? We were unable as a nation to execute some projects that were very much necessary. And Mexico was also delayed with some of their projects. There was a constraint when it comes to the availability of supply. And we were forced to, in as far as I can recall in my history of living here, do rotational load shedding. And that was, I mean, it was probably the hardest period going through the utility. It's such a hit to morale as well as to utility workers, where this is your primary job, your primary service to the country, and not being able to meet that supply and make that supply. That was the point then and there when we decided that what we've been doing has to change. We can't keep going the same way. We need a strategy that is much more robust to consider that there may be delays, consider that there may be risks, contingencies that we need to turn to that were not foreseen in the plan, although we have a really great plan. And that allowed us to turn to our customers or demand market and to see how much we can start to change our regulation and our policy to be in such a way to support participation on the system, on the network, and direct our focus to basically ensuring that we're building a network that acts as a platform. And we're not front and center with supply anymore, but we're relying on our customer base. We're relying on our strategic partners to basically build up this in-country sustainability. And that's how the strategy really developed. And that's why I say, if I have to select our number one priority, it is geared towards ensuring that we're building this platform, both physical platform, the data, innovation, and intelligence platform that is necessary to oversee this active market trading between our various markets that we serve.
No, I hear that, but I mean, it begs the question, to what extent, based on all the moving parts that you're describing here, to what extent is there a real interconnection risk throughout this whole dynamic?
Risk is always there. The nature of the contract in terms of interconnectivity with our regional partner is an opportunity contract. So we are a participant in their market as any other consumer in their market, and when there is energy available, we can procure that energy if at a certain price. When there is not available, then we cannot. And that's the reason why the risk will always be there in terms of whether or not that energy is available. But from a planning standpoint, our priority is to ensure that if the energy is not available, or if it's not available at a cost that is affordable to Belizean people, then we have the reserves in place in country at this time, during this phase, to ensure that we can meet the supply at a reasonable rate. So our planning and dispatching has now really shifted to more of a hedge market system, where we're actively looking hour by hour at the best mix to be pumping power into the network at any given time. And we expect that sort of system will only evolve as we bring in the local renewables.
Interesting. All right, let me just ask this very basic question. What, as at this point in time, when you combine all the sources, from renewables, the interconnection, etc., what is your cost? What is the cost of electricity like in the Belize now?
So the retail cost is about 44 cents Belize, so that's about 22 cents US per kilowatt hour. That is what the customer sees. Right. So regionally, we're a little bit lower, I think, except for like Trinidad and I think Guyana at this time. Across Latin America, we're a little bit higher than Mexico, but we are still lower than like Guatemala, El Salvador, based on our recent benchmarking. The cost of power component lower, because that's the significant component. That's in probably 2024, 2025, we've seen a steep jump. The cost of power component of that retail rate now comes for about 60 to 65%. once we remove like the 10% taxes and fees and licenses and stuff, that leaves a very small operating margin for the utility, which has to cover over, I think it would be 2,500 miles of transmission and distribution lines to date for a customer base of only 117,000 people. Just bringing those numbers into perspective, that is a lot of line for a relatively small customer base. But we need to maintain and operate all of it at any given time.
Yeah, but
with the operating margin that's met.
Yeah, but then Khadija, before you go on any further, because I'm curious, because you're right. All of us who have gone to Belize recognize how should I say, how dispersed the population is and population centers.
Yeah.
So yes, you are right. I take your point in terms of all running of the lines, etc., etc. But then, how is it that you still manage to have a retail price of 22 cents?
Yeah.
I don't, that does not make
The math
sense
not
to
math.
me. No, the math not math. Because, I mean, unless there is some form of subsidy, the overheads on that would be so high that I really am fascinated as to how it is that's achievable.
Joseph, I wish we could go like sing from the mountaintops how much we've been doing in terms of operational efficiency to keep that OPEX and the working capital so low or so minimal because of having recognized the cost of power issue. There is no subsidy. There is no subsidization. Our customers pay the rate, and we have been making our best attempt as a utility to ensure that what the cost is translated to the market, because that is very important to have an efficient tariff translated to people. But for a couple of years, the cost of power has been creeping up. And the COVID situation did not help us as well. We were placed in a position where, although we saw the cost of power creeping up, we did not want to increase the rate for the customer. And so a lot of the volatility and the risk, which didn't necessarily impact the recovery at that time, but it would create some hits on cash flow, which became an issue. The utility absorbed. And I think that's why we had to really refocus and look at how do we get cheaper sources of cost of power in? How do we do that? And that drove the plan for the least cost expansion. Renewables, storage for us, that still prevailed as the number one sources that we should be pursuing at this time. But even more, I think you'd say, a means of support that was not so much foreseen, and we didn't realize how much we could tap into, was the distributed market. Building the distributed market at that time and allowing, or really just opening up the network for that level of participation, whereby our distributed market now accounts for almost 15 megawatts of a system that peaks at 130 megawatts. That's a pretty significant amount. Yeah. And it's growing month by month.
No, but all right. All right, I hear you on that. But so let me take you down into a little bit of a scenario, if you will. This is basic sensitivity. If this conflict, which seemingly has no end in sight, well, depending on what day of the week it is. But if this conflict, and I mean, I'm my pains on this program to point out the significant difference right now between what I call the paper price of oil and the physical price when they're loading it on the ships. Now, the truth of it is that even if the war ends tomorrow morning, the truth of it is that some of those contracts which have been priced, the higher cost of oil is going to be there for quite a while, right? But the question for me or for you would be simply this. If this continues, if that scenario continues for another, 6 months, what breaks first in your model? Because obviously it's not a never-ending, thing. So what goes?
It's not. And I think that the situation, I mean, recently on the news, the Prime Minister, he addressed the nation and he was explaining a lot of these increases that we're seeing on the ground across all sectors and empathizing with the people and the impact that the increased fuel has had on basic commodities. It's been very difficult. The one thing that he said was that implied in a sense is that there's not so much we can do about it because it is such a bigger international problem and the situation of the world. We thought about those words for quite a bit of time and considered that there's actually quite a bit that we can do about our level of reliance on imported fuel and the ways how we can ensure that this sort of translates to various sectors, but especially the power sector. I don't think any clearer case than these geopolitical conflicts that reaffirm the need to have a supply mix that is looking at alternatives to fuel-based sources.
No, all right, but hold on. No. But they say, and that's fine. Nobody can argue the argument.
Yeah.
But you see, Belize, a lot of people don't recognize that Belize, yes, is a mainland, but you also have a lot of little islands around.
Yeah, we do.
Right? That you use, by and large, as far as I'm concerned, you use the small planes to travel between.
Or the water taxi. Yeah.
Or water taxi. But the fact of life is that those things function not on renewables. They function on good old diesel oil or jet fuel or whatever it is. And where I'm going with this is that if this thing continues unabated for the next couple of months, so to speak, what gives? Because yes, I've heard the Prime Minister of Belize making, announcing some subsidies that would obtain at least for a limited period of time. But that, whereas that is a short-term strategic intervention, that is not a long-term solution, right? Because at some point, it has to equalize. So that's what I'm asking you. In that type of scenario, what gives? Because let's be clear. The cost of putting in new renewable energy, the upfront capital cost is high. It has always been high. So those things don't amass that, and it does not occur overnight.
Right.
So I'm just trying to figure out how do you dance? Because yes, you're importing through the interconnection, you're importing a good party energy as well. You do have the renewables, but you also have industries. I'm not going to call them legacy industries because they will be with you forever as far as I'm concerned. How will that relies on fossil fuels? So how do you counterbalance if this current scenario continues to obtain at least over the medium term?
Right. So to bring it in perspective, we're importing on average per year about 40% of our electricity supply. We have near sufficient, or actually I should say sufficient capacity to hold us over in country. As you said, that would be local renewables, so hydroelectricity, biomass supply. Those things are prone to some volatility of availability when it comes to weather conditions and climate. Sometimes we have good years, sometimes we have tough years. And so we would still have to turn to thermal sources as our to make up whatever is that shortfall. And yes, the geopolitical situation will continue to kill us in that area. Our plan really it pushes for what was described as an aggressive capacity expansion plan. So we're doing a whole lot in a short time, with the intent that what we're doing is capitalizing on economy of scale, although we know that we are vastly over-designing for the supply. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that we're going to implement up to 80 megawatts of solar PV. But I also mentioned in another breath that, our peak is currently 130 megawatts. So any network engineer or utility person listening to that will be, are these guys insane? That is the way how we basically figured out that if we're going to have to make this upfront investment, we're going to go large very quickly now, and then from there let the economic growth and the investments take place. Because we kept getting caught in this vicious chicken and egg cycle where a lot of growth is on the horizon. A lot of investors are interested. And the first question is always, what is the cost of electricity? How reliable is it? And do you have enough? And we would say, well, if you come, we'll get more. If you come, we'll make sure we'll be ready. If you come, we'll expand. I think people greatly underestimate what is the success rate of a lot of utility scale projects in general. And if we would bring the success rate more into consideration, you would see that, sometimes it's best to sort of bite the bullet and pay for that margin of security in the
No, but
beginning.
I get that completely. But then let me ask you this, in terms of, because as you had pointed out earlier, your distribution network is wide.
It's wide. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I'm curious, because this I generally have no feel for. What are your land losses like? What are your distributed losses like?
It's pretty fair. When we benchmark across the region, distributed losses, so that would be the low voltage line that reaches the customer, reaches your home.
Right.
That's pretty okay. Where we see the major loss for us is transmission. Because if you've been to Belize, you will hit that highway and you start driving for about 5 miles and you'll see one house. And then you'll drive maybe another 5 miles and meet another house. So
Absolutely.
we have to be sending all of that power across this country, across every mountain, around every mountain, through every creek, everywhere. And a bulk of that power is being generated in the northern region of the country. And a significant amount is being imported from Mexico, which is to the north. So we see a lot more efficiency challenges from the transmission aspect. And this is another reason why we're pushing for a lot of strategic partnership, so that we can preempt development in a way and try to use that to capitalize on our performance metrics, which the regulator actually loves. So this is us going and being much more communicative with the government and explaining to them or bringing down a lot of these technical efficiency issues, monetizing them, because money is really the only thing that they kind of listen to. When you bring in the cost of the losses, that's when it listed, and tell them, we would be able to save so much if rather than putting this industry up here in this northern district, you just send it down south there. Let us feed that, make that line make sense. And then, you also, once we get the line there, we can electrify a couple of your constituents as well, because it makes feasible sense to send the line there in the system.
Yeah, man, fair enough. Last question for you. Very last question for you. In terms of capacity now, do you have the requisite number of personnel to really treat the kind of expansion that you're looking for in the power market, in the energy market? Do you have it at hand? How do you guys cope with that sort of scenario? Because it is an issue, everywhere else. So how do you deal?
One of the biggest subjects of this week has been the issue of retention for our little company, for our country. It's taken a wider discussion. One of the sad parts, I think, about going through such a vigorous exercise in the development of the least cost expansion plan was that it was not accompanied by what I would have wanted, which was implementation and execution plan, which really looked at also aspects of manpower and the allocation of work, and to ensure that we have the skill base and a workforce that is prepared to implement this plan, and what would have to be done by us, and what would have to be based on strategic partnerships. So we've been navigating that space as we go along, and because of that, it not being built in from the beginning, I'm not certain that we've been navigating that as efficiently as we can. Capacity is a continued issue. Our cost of living is increasing. Our customer base is growing slower than we'd like. And what that means is that it has raised questions on revenue sufficiency for the utility, for the system, for the network. We have a lot of infrastructure that we have to maintain, we have to operate. We have new, very rural, brand new villages that are developed, every other month, that we need to interconnect, that we need to electrify. And you would think that that means that the demand is growing quickly enough for us to be generating enough revenue to see to it that we have the capacity in place to basically develop the plan. It's not a perfect cycle. It's not a perfect circle at all. And what has thrown a wrench into our ability to implement and the capacity, I think, and getting in that revenue needed is actually the same thing that was a blessing. I spoke of as a blessing in disguise before, which is distributed generation. Because there is defection from the grid. That is harming the revenue sufficiency. And so what we have been looking at in terms of ensuring the viability, ensuring that we have the capacity to implement and continuing to provide the service as well as to achieve the vision of the plan is to ensure that we are doing all of this under a efficient and appropriate tariff structure. It really comes down to that. We have not, I think, evolved to a level yet where our tariff, the way how we transact with our customers and how we transact with our suppliers are reflecting the innovation that is now there, or the market dynamics that is now there. And that has been a real hold up as to why we cannot push as much strategy from what we've found. So that's definitely will be a focus for us coming as well.
All right, fine. And that's where we have to leave it because we're completely out of time. So my thanks to you, Dr. Khadija Osho, Director of Strategy, Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Belize Electricity Limited. Thanks so much, Khadija.
Thanks so much.
We do hope to have you back from time to time, so we can touch and find more of the issues that obtain in Belize on the energy side. So thank you so much. This is your Market Watch. We begin in the Cayman Islands, where tourism activity reached new highs in March 2026, with more than 64,000 stay-over visitors recorded during the month, and winter arrivals surpassing 215,000 visitors. Cruise arrivals also strengthened sharply, with projections pointing towards approximately 1.2 million cruise passengers this year. The Bahamas also maintained solid tourism momentum, with total arrivals rising 15.7% to 1.4 million visitors in March, and year-to-date arrivals approaching 3.9 million. However, authorities continue to warn that rising global energy prices and geopolitical tensions could increase inflationary pressures, weaken travel demand, and tighten investment conditions over time. On the fiscal front, the Bahamas recorded a modest narrowing of its fiscal deficit to approximately $342 million, although public debt continued rising towards $12.4 billion, reinforcing the importance of continued fiscal consolidation and revenue strengthening measures. Meanwhile, S&P upgraded Bermuda's outlook to positive from stable, supported by expectations that new corporate income tax revenues could strengthen fiscal performance and support debt reduction over the coming years. Bermuda's current account surplus also expanded sharply in late 2025, driven by stronger business services income and investment earnings. ECLAC has lowered its 2026 growth forecast for Latin America and the Caribbean to 2.2%, citing higher oil prices, slower trade growth, and weaker employment expansion. Excluding Guyana, growth in the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean is projected at 1.2%. In Belize, inflation is higher on rising fuel costs, while imports surged nearly 39% year-on-year, driven by higher fuel purchases, machinery imports, and manufactured goods, widening external imbalances amid softer export performance. Regionally, more than 15 Caribbean countries are partnering with the IDB and CDB on a housing resilience initiative aimed at strengthening infrastructure against hurricanes, flooding, and climate-related risks. Meanwhile, Sandals Resorts International announced a $1 billion expansion of its beaches resorts brand across the Caribbean, including projects in Jamaica, Barbados, the Bahamas, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now turning to the regional markets and currencies, the foreign exchange markets remain broadly stable across the Caribbean, with most currencies holding their pegs or managed ranges against the US dollar. The Jamaican dollar trades at approximately 158.93 to 1, Trinidad 680, Guyana 218, and Suriname at 37.55. The Haitian gourd traded at 131 and dollars and 7 cents. In the market, regional indices showed mixed performance. Jamaica's JSC index gained 0.64%, along with the Caribbean exchange up 0.34%, while Trinidad and Tobago's All-TNT index declined 0.48%. All other regional markets traded firm. Top movers this week included Kingston Wharves up 13.1% and TNT and GL, which fell 9.9%. Now that's it for your Market Watch. I'm Joseph Cox. Global Pulse is up next. This is CBR. This is your Global Pulse. OPEC crude production fell to a 36-year low in April, declined by 420,000 barrels per day to 20.55 million barrels daily as Strait of Hormuz disruptions constrained Persian Gulf exports. Kuwait and Iran recorded the largest declines, while uncertainty surrounding the UAE's exit from OPEC added to market volatility. At the same time, U.S. fuel exports surged to a record 8.2 million barrels daily as countries sought alternatives to disrupted Gulf supply. Global airlines cut roughly 2 million seats and 13,000 flights from main schedules as jet fuel prices more than doubled. Lufthansa alone cut 20,000 short-haul flights, while the UK faces heightened jet fuel supply risk and potential inventory shortages. Mediterranean Shipping Company has meanwhile launched new Europe to Middle East shipping routes, bypassing Hormuz as firms attempt to stabilize trade flows. In financial markets, UK borrowing costs climbed sharply with 30-year gilt yields reaching 5.77%, the highest since 1998, amid inflation concerns linked to rising energy prices. UK exports to the United States also fell 24.7%, following President Trump's tariff measures, widening Britain's trade deficit with its largest export market. In the United States, the trade deficit widened 4.4% to $60.3 billion in March as imports of AI-related capital goods and semiconductors remain strong. However, labor market conditions showed signs of resilience. Employers added 115,000 jobs in April, more than double the expectations, while unemployment remained unchanged at 4.3%. Private sector hiring also strengthened, led by healthcare, transportation, and logistics. Elsewhere, Canada's unemployment rate rose to 6.9%, the highest in 6 months, while China's May-Day air travel fell 5.7% year-on-year as high fuel costs weakened demand. South Korea, however, upgraded its growth forecast to 2.7% after semiconductor exports surged nearly 38% in the first quarter, supported by strong global AI demand. Meanwhile, Brazil recorded an April trade surplus of 10.5 billion US dollars on stronger commodity exports, while a new UN-backed report warned that developing countries now spend roughly 8 trillion US dollars annually servicing debt, with debt relief potentially unlocking 900 billion yearly for development financing. Finally, G7 ministers signaled support for reforming development finance access rules, potentially expanding financing eligibility for vulnerable middle-income countries, including several Caribbean economies. Turning quickly to the commodity and equity markets, in the global markets, energy prices remained elevated but volatile. Brent crude edged up 0.33% to $100.41 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude slipped slightly to 94.68. The OPEC basket fell more sharply, declining 5.13% to 112.26, reflecting continued volatility across physical energy markets. Natural gas prices slipped by 0.43%. Meanwhile, global equity markets were broadly weaker. The Nasdaq gained 0.89% on continued AI-related optimism, but most major indices declined, including Germany's DAX, France's CAC 40, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng, as investors monitored inflation risks, higher borrowing costs, and ongoing geopolitical uncertainty. Well, that's it for your Global Pulse. I'm Joseph Cox, and this is CBR. Well, that's a wrap on episode 17, season 3 of Caribbean Business Review. And thank you so much to our loyal audience across MKR Radio and all digital platforms for your continued support. As always, we stand by our mantra that knowledge is strength, but information is power. Our special thanks to Dr. Khadija Osho, Director, Strategy, Business Development and Regulatory Affairs at Belize Electricity Limited, for helping us unpack the structural underpinnings of an integrated resource and resilience strategy for Belize in an environment where resilience may matter more than absolute energy independence. The strategic takeaways from our conversation are: Belize's energy model demonstrates that strategic interdependence can sometimes deliver greater resilience than complete self-sufficiency, particularly for small economies facing fiscal and infrastructure constraints. 2. Diversification across renewables, thermal generation, storage, and regional interconnection is emerging not simply as an environmental objective, but as a critical energy security strategy in an era of geopolitical volatility and fuel price instability. And 3, the transition towards more resilient Caribbean energy systems will depend not only on expanding generation capacity, but also on improving operational efficiency, encouraging distributed generation, and building more flexible participatory electricity markets. As global energy systems become increasingly exposed to geopolitical and market shocks, the ability to balance affordability, flexibility, and security could define the next generation of Caribbean energy strategy. Now, the latest edition of the Caribbean Financial Dispatch is now live, shared on LinkedIn, in your WhatsApp statuses, and via the link in our YouTube comments. Readers can now follow and subscribe at CaribbeanFinancialDispatch.substack.com. You can also listen to this episode at your convenience on Spotify. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and follow this Caribbean Business Review across all platforms.
It's the Everybody Sale at New Budget Supplies. Do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, vinsets and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 Hamilton Road. Telephone 93-4560. New Budget Supplies. Always the best pricing.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hardware.
Welcome back to Rebel Radio. And you know, it is Monday, time for workers' time. When we look at what is happening at the workplace. Yes, we are, as we speak, the unions, Jamaica Confederation of Trade Unions and the Ministry of Finance are in a negotiation. Yes. And you know they started this negotiation last week. Yes, and they can continue this week. Yes. And I know that they are looking at what is the wage tax. A lot of workers are looking and watching it carefully. We'll keep you in touch on what is happening there. Yes. At this time, we are having a discussion with Ms. S. Banbury Edwards, President of the Midwife Association. Yes, I'm just waiting on her, and we are going to. Yes, Ms. Edwards. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you and your listeners. How are you?
Well, I am supposed to be fine.
All right.
Yes. I was just telling my listeners that the trade unions, I know the Confederation of Trade Unions, are at this moment continuing the wage talks at the Ministry of Finance. I know that they started last week. And
yes,
they continue this week. So for what your workers are, I know that the workers in Jamaica are waiting patiently on those talks for the conclusion. What are your workers saying about wages? What are your members?
So my members, of course, we await the ministry to call us in. As it is, you mentioned, they are meeting with the the Confederation of
Trade union.
and so right. So I'm hoping that after, because there's a lot of aspect that they would deal with, but when it comes to benefits pertaining to midwives, then they would call us in. So we have not heard anything from them just yet. So we are waiting to see what happened with the Confederation of Trade Unions, and then we can maybe have a fuller discussion as to see where we go from there.
Okay, all right. The last week was it midweek's week, or it was what? Tell us about what was last week. Hello. Hello, Miss Edwards, are you there?
I am here.
Oh yes, I was asking you to tell my listeners what happened. What were the special occasion for midwives last week?
So yes, on the 5th of May each year, it is celebrated as International Day of the Midwife, and so this year we are celebrating on the theme 1 million more midwives, and earlier. For the past 3 years, we had a lot of midwives who migrated to England. So as a result, it put a strain on our, resources, human resource here in Jamaica. And this July, the 3-year contract period would end. So, maybe some of the midwives might be returning, as in some might in England, but it is definitely needed. We need more midwives, and this is not just Jamaica, globally, because we take care of women, when it comes to maternal and child health. So we take care of the woman before conception, during conception, deliver them, and we take care of them after as well. And if you've been listening to the news, you'll probably hear, some maternal deaths and babies, mothers complaining of not having, proper care and all of that. So if the government invests in having more midwives, then definitely we will alleviate some of those issues that we hear from time to time. On the 5th of May, which was Tuesday of last week, the Jamaican Midwives Association put on a function at the Harmony Beach in Montego Bay, where we celebrated our midwives in Jamaica and, of course, treat them.
Okay.
Yes.
That was very nice, and I can imagine that the turnout was very good.
It was. It was really good, and the ladies enjoyed themselves. I mean, we work and so when we get up to let down our hair and have some fun, then we're gonna do that.
Yes, you spoke about, and members of my number of my listeners would know about this. You spoke about the impact, the manpower shortage. Now,
yes.
How has that impacted the delivery of efficient service by midwives across the country?
It has impacted us really, terrible, and especially in the western region with the passage of Hurricane Melissa as well, wherein we had a lot of infrastructure damage as well. So what happened is that most of my members have to be working from tents, or I know some persons borrow like church, all that is they're able to work from, so as to ensure that our service continues. So we're hoping that the government will see a need and will at least offer some sponsorship to ensure that, because initially our program offered by the Ministry of Health, wherein you would be You do your training and then you'll be bonded. But as it is now, persons are going to the university, so they're paying their way. So once they're finished, it is really their decision where they want to go, because they pay to study. So we're hoping that the government will see it fit to sponsor some persons and to have them bonded, so at least that for a period of time they'll stay in the country to help us. For those of us who are here, we are really burnt out, because some of us have to be working extra hours, longer hours, and just about everything. So we definitely need to improve in terms of our numbers.
Okay, I can see. Yes, and the Hurricane Melissa, I would imagine that it affected a number of your members in the western region. How badly affected were your members working in the western regions?
Badly. A lot of as I said, a lot of the clinics went, building people damaged, as I mentioned. And so they're getting back to some semblance of normal, but there are instances where, they're still picking up the pieces. So there are still some health centers that are not fully operational. Some health centers work from one unit, so as to ensure that the services are not that badly interrupted. But we're still having issues in terms of the infrastructure. The government is doing all that it can, but I think the process is taking a little longer than we expected.
Yeah, and I know that must impact the delivery of services in places like Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth and St. James.
Especially, yes, Westmoreland, St. James and Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth and St. James. Those three parishes, yes, they're still trying to get back to normal. But I must let you know that my midwives, they are going beyond the call of duty to ensure that the ladies and the mothers, the families and the children are taken care of. Yes,
that's very good news out there. I can well imagine that it must have brought additional stress on your members to
I must let you know though that the United Nations Population Fund did come in and assist in employing a few retired midwives so as to help our members, and we must thank you to the UNFPA along with the Ministry of Health, who was instrumental in getting that off, so as to help our members to get a little rest.
Yes.
Because they had to be working along with ensuring that their homes, because a lot of them homes were also destroyed. So picking up your pieces at home plus you're at work, so it was really putting some strain on them. So the United Nations was able to employ a few retired midwives who were able to still practice, and so as to give these members an opportunity to spend a few days at home to ensure that they were able to recuperate.
That's very, very good. Now, apart from the hurricane, the impact, the damage and the dislocation left behind by the hurricane, what are some of the other issues facing your members around the island?
As I mentioned earlier, we need more members. So as a result of that, we are working As midwives, we not only work within the health facility, we also do home visits. And so, you know, we have to be going out, especially for those ladies in the Western region. They now have to be going, you know, because some of the roads were destroyed to ensure that they reach the ladies. So it did put some more additional burden on them, because now they have to be going over, you know, hilly terrains to meet with these ladies. As a result, some of our clients were not able to access care at the hospital, and so they had to take the care to them. So it did put some more strain on them in terms of physical, you know, reaching out to the clients. But I think, as I mentioned, you know, things are getting back to some normalcy, and we are happy for that.
Yes, that is very good, very good. You mentioned the roads. I can just imagine that the transportation issues. Now, what about equipment? Equipment at the public health facilities. Are they equipped with adequate equipment?
They do, because what happened pre-hurricane, you know, they would secure those equipment, ensure that they have movement and all of that, and they lost like some of the buckets and so forth. In terms of equipment, they didn't lose much, and so as a result of that, they were able to continue care.
Right. Okay. Well, as you say that, I know that your members are waiting eagerly for this wage issue to be settled, because, as you mentioned, a number of your members were also victims of the hurricane, and they need money to address these pressing affairs, personal pressing affairs. I know that. So, so we are hoping that the government will recognize that and give us what is due us when they call us to speak in terms of our salaries and allowances. All right.
Yes.
Well,
all right.
Let us hope that they will be sooner than later. Right. What are your opening up? What are your final comments to?
Well, to my members are listening, so we are ensuring that what is due, you will receive. So again, on behalf of the midwives of Jamaica, and we just want to wish them all the best. And so just to mention, for those who maybe didn't make it to the event that we had, you know, I hope that they did have a good day, and to say to them, Happy International Day of the Midwife, and your association stands with you.
Okay, I want to thank you very much, Ms. Edwards. And as you know, this platform is where we deal with workers' issues. So we'll talk again. Thank you very much. Hello? Yes, that was Stanberry Edwards, Miss Stanberry Edwards there, president of the Midwife Association. And as you know, we are, as I indicated at the start of the program, that the Confederation of Trade Unions are meeting at this time. They are continuing the discussion at the Ministry of Finance to iron out wage talks with the government. Yes. we'll keep you abreast of what is happening as soon as we are able to talk with the players, right? But as you know that this month is really workers month. No. Yes. Workers month this month in May. Yes. And the Ministry of Labor will be celebrating Workers' Week between the 17th and the 25th of this month under the theme Voices Heard, Shaping Labor Policies in an Evolving Labor Market. Yes. And they are going to be having a number of activities. Yes. The trade unions, as you know, will be involved. Yes. As I said, Sunday, May 17th, there will be a church service at St. John's Methodist Church, and that's a corner of Umber and Duke Streets in Montego Bay at 10 a.m. Yes, trade unions and members are invited to attend that service. There will also be a supplement in the Gleaner on that day, the Sunday the 17th. So look out for it, right? Monday, May 18th, there will also be a program on Smile Jamaica and on TVJ. Yeah. And a wreath laying ceremony at the Hugh Shearer and Aggie Bernard grave site. Yes. You know what? Hugh Shearer was buried at the National Heroes Park. Yes. Tuesday, May 19th, the minister's sectoral presentation in the House of Parliament. So, we know that he'll be dealing with labor issues. Wednesday, May 20th, IDT Symposium promoting justice, fairness, and workplace harmony. That will be at the UWI Regional Headquarters, Mona Road at 9 a.m. That's Wednesday the 20th. On Thursday, May 21st, there'll be hold on, I missed out something there. National Centenarians Day will also be celebrated on Wednesday, May 20th. There will be visits to centenarian graves island-wide. Yes. And then the wreath laying, the Thursday, May 21st, wreath laying ceremony at Aggie Bernard Monument. And you know where that is? That is in downtown Kingston at the intersection of Ocean Boulevard and Pejan Street. Yeah. Aggie Bernard, as you recall, was one of the lioness of the workers' movement in the 1930s. Yes. And there's been a wreath laying ceremony there at her monument. Friday, May 22nd, from Reflections on Labor and Social Service Affair. That will be at Froome in Westmoreland in collaboration with the Tourism Product Development Company. There will also be an outside broadcast. Yes. On Saturday, 23rd, more centenarian visit. Yes. Saturday, Sunday, more centenarian visit. Yes. And then you know that Monday, May 25th, will be Labor Day. Right, and you'll hear more about which national project will be addressed this week, this Labor Day. Yes, you will hear more about that. But I can invite you, all the workers must prepare themselves to attend these events between the 17th and the 25th of May. Yes, as you know, this is Workers' Month, right? And workers are awaiting to see what is going to happen with this wage talks. Yes, because over the last weeks that workers around Jamaica have experienced a jump in the cost of living. Number of basic items have gone up and more to come. Electricity rates have gone up. Transportation, you can expect that to go up too. So food, everything has gone up. And I know that the workers are waiting to see what is going to be concluded in these wage talks. You know that the government, as you know, has indicated to the unions how much they are offering. 2% in year one, 2 in year second year, and 2.5 in the third year. Well, I know that the unions have, turned down that, they have rejected that. And I know that they are, from my information, they are at the meetings, they are drilling down in the numbers now to see what will happen. Government has offered 2%. You know that they took over 200% for themselves. Yes. And the senior managers, the judges, the upper echelons of the workforce took home some hefty increases. Workers got some small amount. So let us see what is going to happen in these wage talks and how the unions are going to react to them. It is going to be interesting for, as you know, the cost of living has gone up. Yes. All right, let us take a break. This is Rebel Radio.
It's the Everybody Sale at New Budget Supplies. do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, insect and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 per room. Telephone 93-4560. New budget supplies. Always the best prices.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat this summer with your super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hard
Welcome back to Rebel Radio. Yes, and as you know, we are in workers' time. I have with me now one of the country main trade unionists. He's a senior trade union member, Mr. Vincent Morrison. Mr. Morrison, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you, sir, dear listeners.
Yes, sir.
And the other persons on this afternoon.
Well, you are rowing singular this afternoon.
Oh, I see.
Yes, because
you want me to make all the rounds this afternoon?
Yes, because as you know, most of your members are the senior members of your colleagues. Yes, the Jamaica Confederation of Trade Union. They are now meeting with the Ministry of Finance. They started meeting last week, as you are aware. They continue this week. And I was saying that the workers are waiting on these talks because over the last couple of weeks we have seen a significant jump in the cost of goods and services in the country. Cost of living has gone up.
That is true.
Yes.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. I went into the supermarket on Sunday and I buy a couple of items. And I was shocked. I had to ask the lady at the cashier whether the price that was the correct one. Yes. So it's that prices are not moving 3.4% as being suggested in certain quarters.
Yes.
As the other thing.
Well,
and when prices galloping, then inflation, But I don't think the government has a handle on the situation. No, they don't.
Yes. What?
They don't have a handle. They are less than what is up. I don't think, and what they need to do is to come straight and tell the workers and the country exactly what is happening, in terms of the wage negotiation.
Yeah. So, the government has put forward what it is offering to the trade unions. I know that the trade unions have rejected the offer, but you say they don't have an handle, the government. So, what are your expectations?
Well, the government is trying to say without what? They don't have money. But on the other hand, when you see what is happening across the country in terms of government spending, 75 million was just given to the churches.
Yes.
I am sure the vast majority of the church did not need that money. And what should have been done in that regard? I think an assessment should have been done on the impact of the hurricane and the churches, that sector. And those churches that need to rebuild, their system in rebuilding. Those that need some help here and there. And by and large, the big churches, the Catholic, the Anglican, the Baptist, you know, by and large, these churches are not stealing for money. They collect quite a bit of offerings and thunder, because they have investments all across the country. Now, compare the little worker with working minimum wage. The minimum wage cannot assist the worker. It cannot assist the worker. It's totally impossible for a worker to survive on minimum wage cost.
Yeah, it is difficult.
Totally possible.
It's difficult.
And therefore, we believe that the consideration would be far more serious in the way in which they approach the negotiation. One gets the point that they are not very serious in terms of what they are asking for, what they want to see put on the table. They are playing around. Playing around.
Just continue.
Yes. So, it's really a question of the government understanding very much that, I mean, when you look at this now situation, I don't know if your media has been following that situation. I'm almost sure. Where you're talking about nearly $6 billion or $60 billion that is going to be in the hands of the Prime Minister and one man who is the CEO of NARA.
Yes, I observed that.
That can't be. That is priority. Being given for corruption.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, no board, no accountability, no checks and balance. I want to draw your attention to a report that came out Wednesday the 21st of January. Wednesday the 21st of January 2026. I think that was in the business section of the Jamaica Lino. And the headline was Jamaican workers receive 4% of salary after core expenses. There's new survey. Jamaican workers are stopping by as salaries barely cover living costs.
Yes.
According to a new regional survey conducted by human resource professionals. The survey, which covers 20 Caribbean nations, shows the average monthly salary in Jamaica covers just 3.95% more than basic living expenses.
Yes.
Put simply, Most Jamaican workers have got getting none left. After paying for electricity, water, food, fuel, and housing.
Sending children to school.
That is doing it mentioned here. Eh? And you understand why the economy is not going? Eh?
Yeah, because the workers...
The economy is not going because there's no disposable income. Eh? Disposable income is almost nil. Eh?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
aggregate demand is suffered. There's aggregate demand if we don't have money to deal with disposable income in the economy. The economy is not going to grow because the workers are the biggest group
they don't have any money to spend.
Yes. 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 And this survey is very clear.
Yeah.
Very clear.
So do you expect the government to improve its offer to the workers during the...
Yes.
You expect that?
And I will be surprised if it's less than what was offered the last time. Because the cost of living was not as high as the last time. When and across the board 20% was put on the table with some adjustment. Especially for certain groups like the parliamentarians, the permanent secretaries, and the senior directors in the civil service.
Yeah, and the judges.
Yeah. You see? So, what needs to happen? I don't think anything less than a 25-30% to be on the table. So basically at the bottom of the rate scale, up to the middle of the rate scale.
But
another 20% should be for this group from the middle up, excluding the parliamentarians. In other words, those groups got about 300%. Right? All of those groups should take a part. Yeah?
Yeah.
Your salary should be frozen. Should be frozen. Right?
But Mr. Morrison, in a situation where the economy has declined as a result of Melissa, right? And because you observe that the government is short of the government said that they are short of money, right? Now the question is, can the government afford that?
Well, let us deal with what is happening to Melissa. Or Melissa recover. Government is getting assistance from the multilateral. Right? And as I said earlier, private donations, etc., etc. The government virtually telling you that they have money to spend to rebuild. Now put Melissa aside. So look at the damage that the war in the Gulf State have created. Right? So it's a compact. Melissa plus the Gulf States. when you combine the effect of that on the Jamaican workers, right? There's no question that they need help. Remember now, the minimum wage is 16,000 from the 1st of June.
Yes.
It's now 15,000. Huh? And there's a large section of the workforce either at minimum wage or just above minimum wage. That's far above minimum wage. So business is going to be affected. On the point I'm saying, if people don't have money to spend, you're going to have business closure. We're going to have more social and economic hardship on the people. So the balance has to be there. So you can't say to the worker 2%, 4%. While prices, because they were going to move their price between 4 and 8%. Where's Kennedy? They were going to move their price by 9%. Huh? Right? And there are others who don't tell you how much they're moving it back. Let them move it. Far more than those figures. So the point I'm making is that government and put it this way, if government was collecting its taxes, suggestions were made from the opposition recently as to how, for example, take GCT. If you go fully electronic with GCT, you could pick up another 25-30% more taxes. Right? So, I don't want to believe that, to say that government don't have the money to pay. That's not true. When you look at the way all over the country, government can do better. And must do better.
So you're saying
no, it's another point. No, it's a verification at the National Works Agency. NARA is a verification at the NWA. Yes, that's what it is. Verification.
So
it's a way of moving away from the central civil service to set up something that can go faster. Huh? So it's like you have a Mercedes in your garage and you decide to put a Honda in place to get things go each one to be faster. Not going to work. Huh?
So you're saying that the government has the money to pay the workers more?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well,
I'm saying that.
Yeah. At the same time, what are you saying that about the workers in the tourism industry and the security guards? That what the government is supposed to establish a mechanism to make it easier for them to be unionized.
But this government not going to do that. This government is not going to do that. This government, although it's a government that comes out of the Labour Party, is not going to do anything to assist trade unions. Huh? Joint Industrial Council for the Security Guard has been on the book for how long now?
So many.
The Prime Minister spent about 4 hours in the Parliament talking about some issues, and whenever one day mention anything about President of the country, the Minister of Labour. Not him. Yeah.
So you don't expect any movement in those areas either for the workers?
Absolutely not. No, the workers themselves will have to decide that they want and trade union, and they have to decide who join them trade union. Just like our forefathers had to fight for it years ago. They have to do that. We talk about the tourism industry. There's no question that the tourism industry is doing very well. With its levels of expansion all over. One little hurricane bill, or one big hurricane bill, whatever. The workers have to take some lift. Right?
Yes.
The only hotel that did anything that makes sense was the workers for the standard. Didn't have any layoff. No?
No, not that I recall.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely no layoff. Right? All of these foreign hotels coming here, making substantial profit. Look, it's about 40% of the earnings that the industry contracts to be making.
Yes.
To pay salaries and wages, and to pay some little
utilities.
Why do you think we're not doing? All of our major industries, are foreign. Where the profit goes?
Overseas.
Is that the losses that trade growth, you know? The profit that trade growth. By investment and paying good salaries and etc. By maintaining the stability of the currency. If you look on the amount of money that the Bank of Jamaica has wasted by throwing into the option to keep the dollar stable, that could have fixed the roads right across the country to build several more schools. We need more schools. We need more training centers. There are some people in the private sector who are now saying that we should bring in skilled workers. Let's bring in workers. Total disregard for the school leavers who are leaving school. They have been trained long time.
But the school leavers are not equipped to take on the task.
The school leavers, those who are not going to be doctors, those who are not going to be lawyers, there should be a program training for the schools like the welders, the masonry, your plumbers, all of that skills that we need. The tyrants, the painters, really. Because art is there. So young people in school and don't have the qualification to enter university. You should be left to join the gang.
No.
It shouldn't be left to behind the ground. And that is what the system is. I am saying that the system should be so programmed that when you left primary or high school, right? Whatever the economy needs, those persons who are not going to pick up career, or can I call it the white collar career, those who are going to be blue collar, right?
Yes.
There shouldn't be any problem. Because you must have white colors, and you must have blue colors. Right? Because John Brown picnic is not going to enter university. That picnic, there should be an institution there for him to go. And then, when you go to Canada, you know, for example, that's what you see, you know. When you go to the training schools in Canada, you see 200-300 youngsters training in construction work, doing construction, etc., etc. But we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
So, the other thing, Mr. Morrison,
yeah.
You see any light in the way of the expansion of the economy in terms of, like in the bauxite industry, do you see those companies that are down, do you see them coming back on stream this year?
Well, I'm sending a letter to the minister in charge of bauxite to ask him what is the situation with our park. Eh?
Yes.
Yes. Because our park has been closed for months now. You see, look back. How can you run a country at the main industry, the bauxite, the sugar industry, etc. You divest it to the Russians, you divest it to the Chinese. And then they still it down. So all that happened is just they wanted to put.
Yeah. Hold on. Which companies in the bauxite industry is still running? Reynolds and what?
No, man, Reynolds just done. Reynolds just a long time.
Yeah.
Reynolds just doing really quick like they're gone.
Yeah.
We have UC Research who took over Alcan.
Yeah.
And they have two plants, one cruise with Kirkbrine Transit School. They have thousands and thousands of acres of land around it. Raising a couple cows. A couple cows, no work, no donkeys, no horses.
Yeah.
There's a couple cows.
What about the factory in Clarendon?
They have, you shall have your son. Your son is producing. But your son is not producing as efficiently and effective as they are to do. Because over the years, in spite of the tax break, the company got over $84 million for the tax break they got. In spite of that, we have not invested in the company so the company can run efficiently. Right? Jamal in Canada is limping along. And the one in
St. Anne.
That one is going along because all that one does is export the bauxite.
Yeah.
Mine the bauxite and export it. Doesn't convert it to aluminum. But when you look at the price of aluminum on the world market, it is the best in Europe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at the sugar industry. Look at what is happening. Nothing is happening at Burnley, right? Nothing is happening at Monument. And at home that has a rated capacity to produce 100,000 tons of sugar. It's producing about 27,000 tons.
I tell you what, Mr. Morrison, we have exhausted the time that we have for this program today.
Right.
We have to continue because the situation look and sound dismal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Right?
Yes. Okay. That was Mr. Vincent Morrison there from one of the senior trade unionists. That's where we end workers' time for today. Yes. And as we will continue, you know that we have this program every Monday. So let us go for a break. This is Rebel Radio.
Everybody sale at New Budget Supplies. Do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, insect and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 per group. Telephone 93-4560. New Budget Supplies. Always the best prices.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hardware. What is that answer in his telephone?
His answer no.
Here's how to comment during the Frankly Speaking show. On your computer, look to the right of the video. That's your live chat. Click the Say Something box at the bottom, type your message, and hit enter. Boom, you're live. On the mobile app, it's just as easy. Tap the live chat button right under the video to open the menu. Pro tip, if you're in full screen mode, tap the screen once and hit the chat icon to see messages without moving the action. Can't type? Check two things. Make sure you're signed in and see if subscribers only is on. You might need to sub, wait a few minutes. Keep it respectful, follow the mod's rules.
Good day. Good day. It's the child month, and it's Mother's Day here in Jamaica. And the two have more than passing commonalities. We say a special thanks to all women who have mothered their own birth child or children or other people's children. It's a gift. Motherhood is a special gift. And it's your special day. Happy Mother's Day. And to Winnie right here with us. Winnie, Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
So today we are focusing on child months, mental health and children. Sometimes we don't recognize that children may have mental health issues that affect their behavior, school learning, interaction with peers and family. We'll speak with Professor Wendell Abel, who will help us understand mental health issues, especially in children. Just let me tell you right away that Professor Abel will be a little bit late. He's working through some things, but he'll be with us. With me are panelists Desmond Richards and Vinnie Anderson Brown. Welcome to you, our viewers and listeners, for this episode number 209 of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We invite your questions and comments in this podcast to that live chat section. You may place your chats there by following instructions given at the start of the program. Or just go to the space for chats, comments in the channel. No. Last week we did manage our program as tightly as we should have. So we missed a couple of things. So we just take the opportunity to take them on. And we want to start with laughter, because Winnie prepared us with a segment on laughter. It was World Laughter Day. And don't let me hear you say you didn't know.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, World Laughter Day is the first Sunday in May, and although it has nothing to do with Child's Month in Jamaica, it happens to be during Child's Month. And one of the features of laughter yoga is childlike playfulness. So when it comes, we try to be as childlike, not childish, childlike as possible. Children are curious. Children don't need a reason to laugh. They throw a ball and they laugh. Children just laugh readily. And that is really healthy. So World Laughter Day, it is celebrated all over the world. And last Sunday was a day that there were many gatherings. Right here, hear me saying here in Jamaica, right there in Jamaica, there are some people who were specially trained to deal with the psychosocial issues post-Melissa. And these 12 persons who were trained, they were trained to help people to reach for your laughter when you don't feel like it. We're part of the wellness industry. We are not a part of the entertainment industry. So even if we are entertaining, we're not about entertainment. We are about wellness, about health. So it is very important to understand the distinction. These laughter leaders and we who are laughter yoga leaders and teachers, we are about wellness. We are about health. We laugh for no reason. We don't give jokes. And on the screen you will see two of the ladies who were trained. Why you see them outside of the group is that they came, it's a 2-day event, and they came on day 2 to Maypen where the training was done, and they had to do day 1 elsewhere and then put things together. So right there in Jamaica, there are laughter leaders who will help you to reach for your laughter when you don't feel like it.
Winnie, give us a scientific basis of this laughter.
Okay. Talking about the scientific basis, I'm going to begin at this point. The body does not know the difference. Notice I said the body, not the mind. Know the difference between fake and real laughter. You get the same benefits from fake laughter that you would get from laughter. A lot of information is available on that. A lot of studies have been done. The research has been done. And this is not new. Norman Cousins from way back when, there's a book called The Anatomy of an Illness. This man, Norman Cousins, he was diagnosed with terminal illness, and he said, in my own words, I'm telling you the story in a nutshell. He said, if I am going to die, might as well I die a happy man. So he surrounded himself with lots of things to make him laugh. And he found that he was getting better and better. So there are many stories that is documented. There's a film and there's a book. And Dr. Kataria, the doctor who came up with this system, is Dr. Madan Kataria in India. He said, I'm a doctor. So if laughter is the best medicine, why am I not making people laugh? So that is what he started to do in 1995. He started in a park. 5 persons met in a park in Mumbai. And they just like I started, they started giving jokes. But if you keep on giving jokes, what will happen? After time, we say in Jamaica, the joke gets stale. So it's not sweet again. And you start arguing whether or not that is how the joke is. So he decided, a lady told him that if that's what you're going to do, doctor, I'm not coming back the next day. So he said, well, as of tomorrow, we will be laughing without jokes. And that is...
So you have consistently told me just in chatting that one doesn't need a joke to laugh. And that's not what so your organization, should I call it, what's the name of it, and how does one contact you and get in touch with you?
Laughter Yoga. It's Laughter Yoga International. However, individuals, these persons who have been trained and certified, they can be contacted individually. They would have to give you their numbers, but I can give you my number. And my number can always be displayed because I can be reached. Yes. And what do we do? We teach you how to use laughter and breathing to improve health. When people get depressed, the laughter goes. That's the first thing you notice, that the laughter goes when people get depressed. So it is important to make sure that you keep your laugh life going.
Thanks, Winnie. We are waiting on, we are waiting on Professor Wendell Abel to join us on children and mental health.
Until Dr. Abel comes, I would like to use the opportunity to send some condolences to one of our colleagues, Ben Brody. And Brody lost his wife on Thursday morning. So
she was also his business associate.
She was the foundation, the art of the newspaper. Ben was the face, but Mrs. Brody was the heart and one who contributed a lot to journalism behind the scenes. And I appreciate that, Desmond, and I join with you. We join with you. I have to tag on here, Daniel, from last week, our time. We crunched our time and we didn't get to mention our condolences to Daniel Thompson's family, his colleagues at Radio Jamaica. And boy, let me tell you, Daniel was a humble man. He had his own show, he used to be a continuity announcer. He had his own show. He did something, I can't remember what they call it now, but with Emily and that great program.
punch to that type of hotline, and colleagues and friends and family have done it, and
Yes. You know something, Franklin? Looking RJR group, as since 20, I think it's since 2021. Every year since 21, they have been losing some of our great stalwarts, If you look back, Doreen Samuels, Michael Sharp,
Alan
Magnus, yes, and Mikey Thompson, no, and that other I just forget his name. That other sports journalist there last year, remember?
Oh yes, but I think he had moved on to CZM.
While we talk about death, we work in so many different areas of life. Some of my friends help with some of my colleagues, I should say. We deal with serious issues. Laughter is serious business. So death is something very serious. Well, and I'll share this with you. When I was doing the laughter leader training in December, my only living sister, she died the Tuesday. And the Thursday, Friday, those were the days for the training. And I remember someone asked, how do you laugh when you have someone who is dead, when someone close to you has died? How do you laugh? Because she was not there on day one. And the participant said to her, well, her sister died. How did I get through that? No, my sister, thankfully, the last time she came to Jamaica, I was invited to the University of the West Indies. I was invited to do a session with before exams to relieve stress with members of the Mary Seacole Hall. And my sister was there. And during the training, what helped me is that my sister used to laugh until the tears come. Anytime she's laughing, she's wiping her eyes. And that's how I saw her. I saw her wiping her eyes and laughing. So during the whole thing, I was able to focus, do what I have to do, knowing that my sister, she understood that we are not here to stay. So I chose that part to focus on. So even in death, it's not because we do not laugh because we're happy. We're happy because we laugh. That's when the endorphins are released, when we laugh. So it is not saying that, because I have something wonderful going on why I laugh. But it is important to laugh to help us to get through the tough times. In Jamaica, Desmond, you know the saying, you take kin teeth, keep a heart bun. It's really true. Yes. It's really true. And sometimes you don't, laughter is contagious. So sometimes you don't feel like it. But you look back at the things that the people used to do that made you laugh, or you used to laugh with these people. So you laugh with them as if they are alive.
Okay.
Yes, thanks, Winnie. A reminder that we are coming up, we are hoping to join Professor Wendell Abel, our guest today. We have not yet connected with him, but he has told our producer Joshua when he's coming on. I just also use this opportunity, Desmond, I'm going to ask your contribution in this regard. Last week, as many people might remember, we had a discussion about revival from Melissa, restoration from Melissa. We spoke with people from the West, and we spoke with two women in particular who had done everything, they said, to get assistance. One of them had actually also gone to a function at which the Minister of Labour and Social Security was the guest and was assuring people of their benefits. Well, at the end of that program, I advised that I was going to check with the minister's assistant and see what was the situation with those people in particular. One of the people who was with us, Mr. Keith, whether Burn, also supplied us with a list of people, the TRN, we went right through their list. These are people who had lost house or room, and he had made it possible and gave it to Desmond. So Desmond is going to tell us what he did with that. But let me just tell you that I reached out to this assistant of the minister, I won't call her name, although she's a public person, and she asked me for the contact with these particular people. Well, some of the people who were identified by Mr. Wedderburn from Belmont, some of them started getting funds, getting responses last week, during the week. After our program, they thanked us. I don't know if we should be thanked, but I know that the ministry staff and so on went ahead and got over whatever hurdles there were to help them. And I can tell you that on Friday, I reached out to the one who I couldn't reach at all earlier. She was going to get me her TRN number, and she got back to me and said, I don't need to give it to you anymore, just let it pop up on my phone. They've told me how much I'm going to give, and I believe them, and so I'm grateful. So, my experience, we did make them late in the week, I must admit. Late in the week, I didn't go as well as I thought I would. But ministry has been responding.
Yes, I did a follow-up to what you did on Monday and Sunday. I did a follow-up on Monday. When I got those names, and I spoke to some two other people, two other victims. And as I said, I sent it to you. I said they sent me, Mr. Wedderburn sent me a response from people that they have started to receive benefits and information. So I would say that our programs, Sunday and Monday, have paid off, and the people in Belmont have started to receive their benefits. So we have done something towards these people.
I think so, and I want to thank Mr. Wedderburn in particular for, as a community man, for painstakingly taking on this job of listening to people, getting the TRN for each one of them, and making that available. And it was made available, and he made it available to you, Desmond, and I also sent it on to the assistant of the ministry. But you know, it's good to do this thing, but you shouldn't have to do that. We really shouldn't have to do that. The needs are great.
The system is not working, Frank. The system that is in place to assist hurricane victims is not working.
And I can't deny that. I can't deny that one. It's clear that it needs some oomph, it needs some push, but I'm still happy that the people in the ministry moved and assisted some of those persons who were speaking, and I suspect some others. And Desmond and I have been talking, just talking about the journalism and the coverage for these people, and what really has been happening in Jamaica. Because, as I said, up to last week, I know people were still just clearing things from the wall, which had been sent from last year.
The other thing we have to follow up. Remember that the Minister of Local Government gave a deadline, the 8th of May.
I think they met the deadline, Desmond. I think they met the deadline to get the shelter released. As every time I use that word, I hear shelter. Get the shelter, the victims of the hurricane, out of Petersfield high school. And as far as I'm aware, there was some ceremony and all that, and they were moved out so that classes are going to be held. You know, Peter
But
Stevens is particular.
I saw a report where the people are saying that where they sent them, that it's a in very poor condition.
Oh, you mean where they sent them from Peter Stevens?
Yes.
Well, it's a bad situation though that in Jamaica, with so much still. After 6 months, people are still in shelter. It's a bad situation. And I know that one of the arguments is that people don't want to leave where they are, that vicinity, where they suffered loss. They don't necessarily want to move from there. Oh man, 6 months, come on. You know, we can't do better than that. And we should still be better than that.
Yes, we should.
Just reminding you that go ahead.
You don't get Dr. Abel here.
We are going to be having Professor Abel in, he said, 4:30, Joshua will keep us informed.
Okay. All right.
When I see a comment and a response to your comments, that you were expressing 2 words, and I think they have to do with your comments about laughter and death and laughter.
Yes. I want to say though that I realize that it's very challenging for a number of people who are accustomed to laughing at people. They are accustomed to ridicule. It's very hard for some people to really adjust because a joke is wonderful if you're not the butt of the joke. So we don't give jokes because everybody should be able to laugh.
Jokes are good, man. Jokes are fantastic.
Not all of them. Can I tell you something? You say jokes are good. I remember I was at this radio station during Black History Month, and I was trying to find something on the program. The program was Laugh Now, and I was trying to find a joke that had anything to do with black people. And I really searched, and I found one that made me smile, but the smile quickly disappeared. And this was it. If a Pole and a black person were in a race together, what would happen? A pole. The pole would win. Why? Because the black person would stop to put graffiti on the wall. And at first I smiled because I said, can you imagine being in a race and you stop to go put graffiti on the wall? Just the thought of that. And then when I saw just that view of a black person, the smile just disappeared. So you have those jokes.
But Winnie, do you think that if a black person and a pole were in realistically, a black person in a race, that they would stop to put graffiti on the wall?
And that is why it's not funny. That is why, although it was a joke, it's not funny. So this is what I'm saying. At the time,
that's not a funny joke, really. Many people think jokes are find the punchline.
You think bold to do that? You think bold to do that?
You see, that is why we don't go there, because you argue one thing about laughter. Humor, it's subjective. Laughter is universal, but humor is subjective. What makes you laugh may not make me laugh. And what makes Jamaicans laugh may not make people of other nationalities laugh. But laughter is universal. We all laugh. But we all don't have a similar sense of humor.
Okay. Franklin, you know something that we should not take our focus off. And again, I have to take issue with my colleagues in the media. I am talking about police killings. We should not take our focus off that because something must be done to make the police wear body cameras. Right? And we at frankly speaking, we should not take our focus off it.
I agree with you, Desmond. And even though that there is not what appears to be a critical mass against it, I agree with you because it's a way of we should keep there educating people and at least getting people to think about it. Why are we putting down so many Jamaican young men? So many young Jamaican men who must have qualities, certainly have families, certainly have a right to go to court if they are suspects. Why are we putting down so many of them? Even if some of us decide long before we know what happened, that them wicked and so on. We should keep at it. I'm just reminding people, and we expect to be joined any minute now by Professor Wendell Abel on the matter of children and mental health. But I'm going to put one more on the table that somebody has been asking me about this. And it's something that I think that we should deal with. How do we deal with death in Jamaica? How do we deal with death in Jamaica? And people don't like to discuss death too much, but it's something that requires. And let me tell you one of the parts of it that I absolutely abhor. I hate it. It is the turning of the front of a church into various stalls for vending of all sorts of normal food items and drink. Funeral is taking place. At the service is taking place in the church. And at the church gate, the first time I saw it, I nearly freaked out. Right here in Jamaica, the first time I saw it was in St. At the front of it, people come and set up their stalls, set up their car back open, and they're selling cane, orange. They roast. Nowadays, they're going to roast jerk out of the back there. Liquor. Every thing that you can think of, they're selling out there at the church. And people come out and people hang around. It is one of the worst things, I believe, that has happened in Jamaica.
There's worse than that, Franklin. Sorry.
Yes.
There's worse than that. What is worse than that for me is the expectation of the family. What others expect of the family. Anywhere you are to get it from, you are supposed to provide big feasts. And what is worse is that after you feed them, they mess up the yard and leave it for you to clean. That's not how Jamaicans used to be. They mess up the yard, mess up the place, and you have dead to bury. But you need to go clean up after you feed them.
Really, I don't know if that is worse than the dead yard.
No, they are selling. They are selling outside. No, they're selling outside. Yes, but they're selling outside. And they'll tell you that they have harvests where people sell to. So they will argue about that. But give me a reason. You feed people, you provide garbage bins, and they just mess up the place and leave it, and you have dead. They come and place order. I want Heineken. I don't want this. And they quarrel about the dead yard. Food not enough. When people used to bring food, they never used to descend and...
Yes. What people come in for laugh, really. That's why they come and ask.
No, we don't. There's no laugh. No, we're not in that. We're not in that. No. You have to be caring. When someone has dead, people used to come and help you with the children because they realize that you're grieving. They would take things. They don't come to take from you and steal your things.
Yeah.
Things have
That
changed.
also changed years ago when
Things have
that's
changed,
not
really.
But we don't have
No,
to accept those horrible changes.
I agree with you. Things have changed, but people selling at the gate of a church is because there's a market there. If their goods
Yes,
were, if nobody were buying their goods, they wouldn't be there
there wouldn't
selling
be any
francis.
sellers.
yes,
There
yes.
wouldn't
So
be any sellers.
I'm not the vendors I'm blaming. I'm talking about something that has spread across Jamaican society, right? And people buying into it. The people going into the church, buying into it. It's like people can't sit down somewhere for hour and a half, 2 hours. By the way, some of them go on for 4 hours. I went to one recently. Without having to eat or without having to drink a liquor.
It's not all churches that you go and see that, It's not all churches you go. You won't see that at the St. Andrew Parish Church.
Let me read this comment. Let me read this comment from Vando Palmer. It says, I thought COVID had taught us a lesson that funerals don't have to be what we see nowadays.
I suspect he means by that the numbers. Remember, during COVID.
Not just the numbers. No, they weren't selling and carrying on like that during COVID. They couldn't do that during COVID.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, so he's right. Right. And being rapacious, I call it. I'm so annoyed when I see people just descend on the bereaved and then have all kinds of expectations. That is so wrong. Yes. Owen says.
Then they judge you by the type of casket and all of that. Well, Professor, thank you, sir. Glad to have you. I know that you went through a lot of difficulties to get on the show. Professor Wendell, he needs no introduction. Thank you, Prof. Prof, are you hearing us, Prof?
I'm hearing you.
Beautiful, and we are hearing you. With me is Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Now, the first thing I'll ask you is, how serious is this issue of mental health among Jamaican children? How serious an issue is it?
Well, I don't like the word serious, but we do know that up to about 30% of children may have mental health issues. Yes. Varying from what I describe firstly as childhood trauma, or in recent times we refer to this as adverse childhood experiences, and I'll come back to that. To general behavioral problems and conduct disorder. And in older children, we may have problems with substance abuse, especially in our setting, cannabis use. And in recent years, we've seen waves of suicidal behavior among children and adolescents. And of course, we have the more severe conditions such as depression, psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, and so on. So there's a wide range of disorders. Yes. But the one that we sometimes don't speak a lot about is childhood trauma. And that's the one I'd like to focus on because I think it was last year after I gave the Grace Kennedy Foundation lecture on childhood trauma. Breaking the cycle. I would encourage people to go back on YouTube and look at that lecture because it has been insightful and I think has provoked a lot of interest and thought. But when we talk about childhood trauma, we're talking about or sometimes you may hear me use the word adverse childhood experiences, also the ACEs. And we use ACEs because it's a kind of sexy topic. ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. But this would include such things as abuse, such as physical abuse, like the parent who beat the hell out of a child, yes, and they think that is discipline, or emotional abuse, and verbal abuse, where you call the child a black picnic, or you're not going to come out to bit nothing like you work for his pooper, that sort of thing. Practices that sometimes we consider to be acceptable in our setting. And of course, sexual abuse, which is also common among children in this country. So you have
how common is the trauma, the spectrum of the trauma? How common would a child, how often would a child experience that? How widespread is it?
All right. And let me before I answer that, let me just add. So it also includes neglect, like emotional neglect, and physical neglect, and then problems within the home. And this is why I want to kind of delay common. And problems within the home would include like parent being absent, whether through death or migration. We know how widespread migration is and how it impacts on children in this country. Having a parent who is incarcerated, or a parent who is mentally ill or using drugs. But an important one is violence within the home, especially when the violence is directed towards the mother. Yes, domestic violence. Violence in the home and violence in the community. And that is probably violence is probably the most common childhood trauma. And there was a study done in 2023, the Violence Against Children study. And it showed that 8 out of 10 children in Jamaica would have reported being exposed to violence in one form or the other, whether violence in the home, violence at school in form of bullying, or violence in the community. So the exposure
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, yeah. Very frightening statistics. And that in as much as violence, exposure to violence is one of those adverse childhood experiences, then we know it's but we know the exposure is high. And the question is, are we then surprised? No, we're not. We know that this country has been plagued with violence for quite a while.
I have a question, Professor Abel. Would you classify spanking as a form of violence?
Well, it depends on what you call
not beating now, not the murderation thing. Slap on the butt.
Yes, it can be a violent behavior because if you're using it as a form of discipline, they're more acceptable and gentler way to discipline a child. And I'm reflecting back in terms of my own childhood. I can never recall being beaten by my parents. Yes. Yet there were disciplinarians, but there are other forms, there are other ways to discipline a child without having to use physical means. But we justify it in this country, even within the church. And it's because of the legacy of violence coming from slavery. Yes? Slavery, where it was acceptable to even beat people on a plantation and beat the hell out of children, right? And so we justify it even within the church. Yes? The church people tell you, the text doesn't go this way, but they often quote, spare the rod and spoil the child as a justification. But what a lot of people use in forms of corporal punishment is violence, right? And that is why we have the challenges that we're facing in this country today. This is a violent society, and it has normalized violence within the community and even within the home.
Professor, you spoke about traumatized child. What are some of the signs we should look for in a traumatized child?
That's a very good question, another good question. And I'm going to answer it by saying this. Behavior is the language of trauma. Children show us before they tell us when they are hurting. Behavior is the language of trauma. Behavior is the language of trauma. Children show us before they tell us when they are in distress. Yes? And so there are wide host of manifestation of trauma. It can reflect, very often in children, it may reflect changes in behavior. So the child who is usually quite withdrawn may begin to show aggressive behavior, conduct problems, and so on. Or the child who was usually very lively, energetic, may become withdrawn. Some children, when they're exposed to trauma, may show what we also refer to as regressive behavior. So they start to wet bed again, they start to suck their thumb, and that sort of thing. And some children also, trauma affects the brain in such a way that the children also may begin to show decline in their performance in school. So a child, for example, who is experiencing a lot of trauma at home or in the community, may be sitting in class and they may be there daydreaming, and the teacher thinks that the child is not paying attention and so on. And the response usually is that that child, and I'm glad that we're not corporal punishment is not supported in schools anymore, but in my time, a child would be beaten. Right? That child was probably being sexually abused at home, and they're in class. Daydream. We refer to it as dissociation. That child is dissociated because that's how they deal with trauma. They daydream and they begin to mind wander off. And we don't realize that it's because of the trauma they're experiencing while they're operating like that. So trauma can affect your concentration in school. Children who are also affected by trauma become emotionally dysregulated. They can't control the emotion because the brain is so messed up, especially the areas of the brain that are responsible to deal with emotions. They also may become impulsive, and that is why impulsive and they're easily triggered, and that is why sometimes they may show aggressive behavior. There's that children who are easily getting into fights. Somebody says something to them in class, and then just act out and become aggressive, right? And I remember once I was doing a workshop and somebody said to me, drama. A lot of times when you begin to see all of this drama in the life of a child, think about trauma. Yes. And then of course, so it affects your school performance. In older children, it may lead to alcohol and drug use. And I often say to parents and to people that addiction begins and ends with pain. So that child who may be smoking ganja, yes, we make a big, of course, we're concerned about the use of the ganja and so on, but we focus a lot on the addiction, and we're not thinking about the pain. What is triggering that drug use? Addiction begins and ends with pain. And a lot of time, the underlying problem is trauma, childhood trauma. We see children who display what we call self-harming behavior. They cut themselves, scrape body, and this self-harming behavior, we're seeing an increase in it. Sometimes many times it's non-suicidal, sometimes it may be with intent to hurt self. And children who are going through a lot of pain and trauma tell you that they do this because of the trauma, especially the chronic trauma, they become numb, and they probably want to cut themselves just to feel some pain or to release the pain. Yes. So again, what we're saying is self-harming behavior, right? Sometimes the suicide attempt may be related to trauma. I'm not saying in all cases it's so, but we have to begin to look for trauma. Trauma is common in Jamaica. It affects children across the life cycle, and it's common, it affects children across the life cycle. And so when we begin to study these behavioral changes, we have to remember behavior is a language of trauma.
So we start to pick up those behaviors, or we have some doubts. Where does one go to get now scientific and medical assessment of those children?
No, this is part of the challenge we face in Jamaica because the same study, the violence against children study, I think it reported that up to half the children with behavioral problems and so on, right? With mental issues cannot access mental health care readily. Yes, and when they do, the wait period is long, sometimes up to 3 to 6 months to see a professional. And that is because we have a shortage of skilled persons who manage and work with children with behavioral problems, children with mental health problems. And that's a challenge we face.
And what's the consequence of that, Prof? When we can't get our children assess first of all properly and then treated? What's the consequence for family and nation?
Well, of course they remain untreated, but guess what? If you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed on those who never cut you. And I'll repeat, if you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed from those who never cut you. Yes. And the long-term implication of that is children who are not managed properly are going to may end up with long-term behavioral problems, the underperforming schools possibly, a lot of them become perpetrators and themselves victims of crime and violence themselves. And as you never bleed from what hurt you. If you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed on those who never cut you. And a lot of them go on to engage in drug, alcohol, and so on. Yes. And of course, there are lots of adults around who are listening. Yes. And will shake their heads and say, yes, I myself have experienced childhood trauma. I was not able to access treatment and so on. And this has affected my life to this very day. Some people are able to recover and move on with their life, but many people continue to suffer even as adults because of untreated childhood trauma.
And the professionals we should be seeking out are psychiatrists for these children or psychologists.
Well, your psychiatrist is a medical doctor who's trained, but they're usually kind of at the end of the stream. We want to be able to have other first line response in the community. And you just you look at your healthcare services. We're looking at increasingly we're training more for community health aides, working in the system to be able to understand and to be able to pick up these childhood problems, to be able to intervene at the community level. We're training counselors. Fortunately for our universities, we're turning more counselors. They're working in the community. More schools are having guidance counselors who are able to screen, identify these problems and to refer them. And of course, the universities again have been doing a better job training psychologists and of course psychiatrists. And our social workers are also well trained to be able to identify these problems and to intervene. So I think over the past 25 years, there certainly has been an expansion in the number of persons that we're trained to be able to provide care for children and adolescents. But despite that, the problems are so widespread and demanding that it's we don't have enough trained personnel. I'm just
I would love you to respond to this, Prof. One of our readers is saying, so clearly more responsibility is placed on the classroom teacher to identify this trauma at an early stage. But they themselves, meaning the teachers, were not trained to do so. Hence, might be reacting rather than responding.
That is true. And it's true that we have to continue to train our teachers to be able to identify these problems. But teachers at an early age, especially in the early childhood sector, right? We have to be able to pick up these problems very early. But as we're speaking about this, we really have to focus a lot of our attention on parenting. And maybe this is where I should have started the whole discussion in terms of how do we prevent all of this, especially the childhood trauma. And I do gardening a lot, and when I'm out in my garden, I look at plants. And sometimes I look at the farmers and I see they plant a tree. And you know what the farmer will do to that tree? He will stake it to make sure the tree is sturdy. He'll make sure the tree is watered, so he nurtures it. And sometimes if there are goats around or predators, he's going to put some wire around to protect the tree. We learn this even with trees, and it tells us some lessons in terms of how we should deal with children. For children need to be brought up in an environment that is safe, stable, and secure, and nurturing. And I'll repeat it. Children need to be safe, stable, and secure. Yes? For that child to experience healthy development, safe, stable, and secure. Yes? And that's what trauma does. Trauma doesn't make their environment safe, especially if the child who is being beaten or bullied or sexually abused. It is not stable if for some reason they're being shifted from one caregiver to another and they're not getting. And it's not healthy, that development, if it's not nurturing and their parents there who are giving them emotional support. Or it can't be stable if the parents are there beating and criticizing and hurting that child. And what we must remember, so the environment must be safe, it must be stable, it must be secure. SSS, safe, stable, and secure. And when this doesn't happen, trauma prevents this from happening, then children are very vulnerable, yes, to trauma, and this will cause unhealthy development. And therefore,
what about homes where people provide all of that? And the child then finds a way of abusing the mother or abusing the father or behaving totally contrary to what's going on. The parents provide everything.
You may think so, that they're providing everything, right? Because sometimes we may be providing for that child financially and so on, but the home, there are problems within the home. On the outside, you may think that they're providing everything, but it may not be a safe environment. It may not be a nurturing environment, and maybe the child may be unhappy. Yes, because it's
sometimes just a piece of bad.
No.
You don't have any of those things where the parent is bad and can't be controlled.
No, but lots of times we see that child and the child is bad. A lot of times we see the child is sad. Behavior is the language of trauma. Children show support, they tell us they're in danger. And so let's come back because you kind of touch a point. What the study is showing us?
Okay, that's the end of today's show. Thanks to all my listeners and viewers. Thanks to my technical operator, Kevin. And remember, you gave us an accident-free weekend, if my memory serves me right. Let us continue to reduce the number of fatalities on our roads. Take it easy. And remember to stay safe. Keep away from the gunmen. Yes. Until Wednesday, this is Rebel Radio, and I am Desmond Richards.
Do-it-yourself professionals and contractors. This is the sale for you. Lumber, steel, dress and form ply, water tanks, pumps, PVC pipes and fittings, toilets, bathtubs, vanities and basins, windows, paint, doors, floor and wall tiles, insect and grout. Up to 20% off selected items. 195 Hazelburn Road. Telephone 923-4560. New budget supplies. Always the best pricing.
Tools, hardware, and supplies is turning up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring, and more. At Tools, hardware, and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hardware.